Chapter 248. Brother Fei Run. As you expected, the west gate of the Imperial City is the weakest place in the rebel army. Not far from the city gate, Chu Jiuxing's gaze was calm. At this moment, he was concealing his aura and hiding in an alley as he spoke slowly in a low voice. If Su Tianxing and the others progress smoothly, they should be able to attract a group of rebel army to the north and east gates. At that time, the pressure on our side will be greatly reduced. Even if these guys react and want to stop us from leaving the city, they won't be able to make it in time. At the side, Farron also nodded secretly. There is only a small group of rebel army troops guarding the west gate of the Imperial City. Looking from a distance, there were only about 30 to 40 people. Most of these rebel soldiers were at the Zhangyi realm, and only a few had reached the High Star realm. Fei Run, this princess's origin power, has also recovered a portion. I won't drag you and brother down. Let's kill our way out. As the two of them finished speaking, Chu Qian, who was hiding behind them, also spoke. Her tone was filled with resentment. It was obvious that she hated Chu Wan and his rebel army forces to the bone. After all, the other party had personally overthrown the current great Chu royal family and imperial court. They were traitors who rebelled against their superiors. Let's not rush. Chu and subordinates are not stupid. They shouldn't have only sent these few people to guard the city gate. I think there's still a group of shadow guards hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to move. Waving his hand, Fei Run was not in a hurry in the face of Chu Qian's suggestion. His expression was thoughtful. For Fei Run and the Chu siblings, just relying on this small group of rebel army troops would not be able to stop the three of them from escaping the Imperial City. It was obvious that this was only a superficial defense. He was very clear in his heart. Brother Fei Run, then are we just going to wait? If Sect Master Su and the others can't resist the attack, when the enemy returns, we won't be able to leave. If this is the result in the end, I'm more willing to fight to the death and defend the last dignity of the Imperial family. Chu Jiuxing said in a low voice when he saw Fei Ren's hesitation. It seemed that he could no longer remain calm. After all, the situation was urgent. No one could predict whether Wei Wuyan and the assassins of the Shadow Squad would return. After all, compared to the assassins of the Dark Shadow Squad, Wei Wuyan, who was at the 10th level of the Star Realm, was more difficult to deal with. Even if the three of them worked together, they might not be able to defeat him. Fine, let's give it a try. Glancing at the aggressive Chu Jiuxing and the flushed Chu Qian behind him, Fei Ren finally nodded his head. Now that Chu Qian had recovered a portion of her origin power, she was able to fight against a normal cultivator of the 1st or 2nd level of the Star Realm. Chu Jiuxing, on the other hand, was at the 7th level of the Star Realm. With the strength of the 30 to 40 rebel soldiers guarding the western gate of the Imperial City, there was no way they could stop Chu Jiuxing. As for Fei Run, his goal was also very clear. He only needed to stop the Shadow Guard assassins supporting the western gate of the Imperial City, and the Chu siblings in front of him would have a chance to escape from the Imperial City. At that time, he would have repaid Chu Qianyang's favor, and at the same time, he could take the opportunity to slip away. Do it. After deciding on a strategy, Fei Run and the Chu siblings looked at each other, and then their figures instantly disappeared from the spot. Boom! Outside the western gate, a deafening origin power explosion rang out, as if the heavens were shaking and the earth was shaking. The few rebel soldiers near the gate didn't even have time to react before they were sent flying to the side by the powerful origin power. Their armor was instantly shattered, and their bodies were covered in bloody wounds. They couldn't be more dead. Who's there? Not good. Enemy attack. In just a breath's time, seeing several of their companions die instantly, the faces of the other rebel soldiers guarding the west gate panicked, and they cried out in alarm. Obviously, they also realized that the enemy had launched a sneak attack. They immediately tightened their grip on the weapons in their hands and looked around. Over there, one of the rebel soldiers let out a low cry. In the next moment, everyone looked up and saw Chu Jiuxing, who was wearing a brocade robe, slowly appear in front of them. At this moment, his right hand was tightly gripping the neck of a rebel soldier, and his expression was cold. 7th level of the Star Realm. Sensing the terrifying origin power aura on Chu Jiuxing's body, many of the rebel soldiers' expressions froze, and they were greatly shocked. Crack! Whoosh! Chu Jiuxing's hand suddenly exerted force, and in the next moment, he twisted the head of the rebel soldier and threw the corpse to the side. He charged toward the city gate, as if he wanted to kill his way out of the imperial city. Stop him! Seeing Chu Jiuxing rushing toward the city gate, a second-level Star Realm junior leader of the rebel army shouted at the top of his lungs. At the same time, he took the lead and charged forward with the weapon in his hand, and a large amount of origin power swept out. Although he knew that he was no match for Chu Jiuxing, he had received a death order. His superiors had ordered him not to let even a fly out of the imperial city. Therefore, this junior leader of the rebel army went forward to stop Chu Jiuxing, even if he had to die. Die! With a palm strike, the origin power around Chu Jiuxing's body surged. In the next moment, the junior leader of the rebel army spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the side. His chest had been pierced through, and he was dead. This junior leader of the rebel army was fighting against the crown prince, Chu Jiuxing, who was at the 7th level of the Star Realm. He was indeed overestimating himself, like an ant trying to shake a tree. Big brother, I'll help you. Just as Chu Jiuxing was about to start a massacre, Chu Qian, who was behind him, also flew out and joined the battle. This girl, whatever, let's do it. Seeing this, Fei Ren did not dare to be negligent and also took action to defend against the enemy. Your Highness the Crown Prince, Your Highness the Princess, long time no see. Where are you going? Just as Fei Ren and the Chu siblings were about to force their way out of the city, a cold and mocking male voice came from afar. In the next moment, a black-robed young man suddenly appeared. The black-robed young man had an ancient martial broadsword at his waist, and behind him were a dozen black-clothed masked assassins. They were the Shadow Squad. 9th level of the Star Realm. This guy is Lu Ming. Looking at the black-robed young man who suddenly appeared, Fei Ren's gaze turned cold. The other party's aura had already reached the 9th level of the Star Realm, and it was extremely unfamiliar. He was not a member of the Shadow Squad, but the commander of the Steel Corps, Lu Ming, who had been missing for a long time. Previously, he had heard Chang Qingshan and Yang Qing, who had died in battle, mention that Lu Ming had gone out to train for a long time. Now that he had returned, his strength had greatly increased. Furthermore, the ancient martial broadsword at the waist of the black-robed young man was the standard weapon of the Steel Corps' high-ranking generals, which clearly proved his identity. So this guy has also betrayed us. He's not missing. No wonder the Steel Corps soldiers were only able to defend for less than half a day, and the huge imperial city fell. 1,000 miles of dike is destroyed by an ant's nest. Looking at Lu Ming and the group of Shadow Squad assassins behind him, Fei Ren immediately understood something, and his expression turned serious. Lu Ming, you're a traitorous bastard. You actually betrayed Father. Back then, Father trusted you so much. Not only did he promote you to be the commander of the Steel Corps, he even made you the youngest consecrator of the royal family. You damn bastard. Ingrate. Seeing that the person who came was Lu Ming and a group of assassins from the Dark Shadow Squad behind him, no matter how stupid Chu Qian was, she would still understand what was going on. She immediately cursed, and her face instantly turned red, as if she was extremely furious. Commander Lu Ming, even you have betrayed us. By the side, although he wasn't as agitated as Chu Qian, Chu Jiuxing's gaze also sunk when he saw Lu Ming stopping them from leaving the city. His expression instantly turned serious, and it was enough to show that he was similarly furious. Princess, Crown Prince, I'm really sorry. A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in, and I'm just following the trend. Facing Chu Qian's scolding, Lu Ming did not get angry. Instead, he laughed and shook his head with a playful tone. Lu Ming, Crown Prince, there's no need to waste words with him. Bring the princess and retreat first. I'll deal with this guy. Seeing how shameless Lu Ming was, Chu Jiuxing's eyes widened in anger. Just as he was about to say something, he was interrupted by Fei Ren. High 9th level Star Realm. Just right for me to fight without restraint. Although Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the 9th level of the Star Realm, Fei Ren wasn't completely powerless. On the contrary, if he didn't have the burden of the Chu siblings, Fei Ren wouldn't have any worries and could kill Lu Ming with all his trump cards. Chapter 249. Brother Fei Ren, you want to deal with Lu Ming by yourself? Chu Jiuxing asked in disbelief. Although Fei Ren wasn't weak and had once defeated the number 1 genius of the Pavilion of Prince Tung, Gu Qingmu, his cultivation was only at the 4th level of the Star Realm. On the other hand, Lu Ming wasn't an ordinary person. He was a 9th level Star Realm cultivator. After a martial artist stepped into the High Star Realm, every increase in realm would greatly increase their strength. And the difference between Fei Ren and Lu Ming's cultivation was an entire 5 small realms. There was no need to mention the difference in strength. Thus, Chu Jiuxing didn't have much confidence in the battle between Fei Ren and Lu Ming. Let's go. However, Fei Ren didn't plan to waste any words on Chu Jiuxing's apprehension. He immediately flew out and turned into an afterimage as he attacked Lu Ming. Whoosh! The energy around Fei Ren's body surged. In the next moment, he raised his hand and shot out a golden waterfall that swept towards Lu Ming's vitals. Huff! Huff! The golden waterfall swept across the sky, bringing along gusts of whistling wind at the same time. In an instant, it split into two into 3, with layers upon layers of illusions. Furthermore, they were all aimed at Lu Ming's blind spot, making it hard for him to dodge. The attacks were extremely tricky. Stinking brat, today is the day you die. Seeing that Fei Ren was the first to arrive, Lu Ming smiled viciously as he also stepped forward. He raised his fist to welcome the incoming golden light with an imposing aura. Boom! Lu Ming's fist and the golden waterfall fiercely clashed. In the next moment, the energy wreaked havoc and the golden waterfall couldn't withstand the powerful force of the fist. In less than a breath's time, it collapsed and turned into nothingness. Go! Kill these 2 surviving members of the Chu clan, and His Highness will reward you greatly. After destroying Fei Ren's attack with a punch, Lu Ming also yelled out. Clearly, he wanted to end the battle quickly and prevent the Chu siblings from leaving the Imperial City safely. Kill! Kill them! In an instant, battle cries shook the heavens. Just when Lu Ming and Fei Ren were clashing, a group of Dark Shadow Squad and the surviving rebel soldiers surrounded the Chu siblings. In an instant, killing intent filled the city gate, causing everyone to tremble in fear. Die! In the midst of the chaotic battle, a Shadow Guard assassin seized the opportunity and slashed at Chu Qian's shoulder. He could already tell that the other party's Yuan power had not fully recovered, and her strength was at its lowest point. She was completely unable to block his attack. Not good. Chu Qian had killed 2 Zhonghe Realm rebel soldiers with a single slash. Faced with this sudden sneak attack, Chu Qian's pretty face changed slightly. Her beautiful eyes revealed a terrified expression. Big Dipper Mystic Fire Palm. Just as the blade was about to land on her shoulder, Chu Jiuxing's explosive shout suddenly came from the side. Chu Jiuxing raised his hand and shot out an incomparably hot fireball, instantly engulfing the Dark Shadow Squad assassin who had ambushed her, turning her into a pool of ashes and blood. Not even a corpse was left behind. Sister, are you all right? Chu Jiuxing's figure landed beside Chu Qian as he comforted her in a low voice. As a direct descendant of the royal family, he naturally cultivated the quasi-rank 5 cultivation technique, Heaven and Earth Morality technique. However, compared to Chu Tianyang, his Celestial Mystic Fire Palm was a little weaker. However, with his 7th level Star Realm cultivation, it was more than enough to kill these 3rd-rate rebel soldiers and Dark Shadow Squad assassins. Brother, I'm fine. All right, let's continue killing. Seeing Chu Qian shake her head, Chu Jiuxing also said solemnly. Now that Fei Ren had taken action to stall Lu Ming, he naturally could not let down the other party's painstaking efforts and waste a good opportunity. Damned little bastard. Once again repelling Fei Ren with a palm, Lu Ming's face was filled with rage when he saw the Chu siblings getting closer and closer to the city gate and about to kill their way out. Originally, he thought that Fei Rin's strength was just an undeserved reputation and couldn't even withstand a single blow. However, after a few exchanges, Lu Ming realized that he was gravely mistaken. He had severely underestimated Fei Rin, who was actually on par with him in terms of strength. As a Grand Commander of the Steel Corps, is this all you've got? Stepping on the wind, Fei Rin also landed firmly on the ground. His gaze once again looked at Lu Ming, who seemed to not have suffered any injuries. With sharp tongue, I'll definitely kill you. Facing Fei Rin's provocation, Lu Ming also let out a low roar. Following that, his figure soared into the air. At the same time, the origin energy on his body was circulated to the peak. A huge aura instantly descended around the city gate. Clearly, he no longer planned to hold back. Blood Dragon Slash. The ancient martial blade on his waist was instantly unsheathed. In the next moment, Lu Ming looked down from above. His right hand that was holding onto the blade trembled as he instantly slashed out a huge scarlet blade light. The scarlet blade light was like a heavenly ravine that split half of the sky. The might of the attack was earth-shattering. Good. Facing Lu Ming's strongest attack, Fei Rin's expression was solemn as he pulled out the Azure Dragon halberd from his back. At the same time, he unreservedly released his origin energy. One man and one halberd stood on the same spot. His aura was like a heavenly soldier descending to the mortal world. How is this possible? You actually possess a grade 5 spiritual treasure. Sensing the might of the Azure Dragon halberd in Fei Rin's hand, Lu Ming, who was in the air, was furious as his eyes widened. Break! With a furious roar, the Azure Dragon halberd in Fei Rin's hand pierced through the air. In an instant, a large amount of golden origin energy wreaked havoc and turned into a roaring golden dragon. On the dragon, one could faintly see the scales and claws. It was as if a lifelike, primordial heavenly dragon was born. Its might was equally earth-shattering. Roar! Rumble! Under Lu Ming's gaze of disbelief, the golden dragon fiercely clashed with the scarlet blade light. In the next moment, a dragon roar resounded as the two powerful origin energies engulfed each other. In the end, they completely exploded and turned into nothingness. In a single attack, they were evenly matched. However, just when Lu Ming was in shock, Fei Rin's attack arrived once again. The Azure Dragon halberd in his hand danced once again as he threw it out. It was actually piercing towards Lu Ming in the air. At the same time, it brought along an ear-piercing sonic boom as it attacked like the wind. Pucci! Lu Ming, who was in the air, had no strength to resist at all. In a single exchange, his body was pierced through by the Azure Dragon halberd. His protective origin energy turned into strands of white light and shattered. At the same time, he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood as his aura dropped to the lowest point. Clang! Boom! The halberd streaked across the sky like a golden meteor, and Lu Ming was also nailed to the wall above the city gate. Pools of blood dripped down, and his originally sinister face instantly turned pale. His eyes were wide open, as if he died with grievances. At this moment, the 9th level Star Realm martial artist, the commander of the Steel Corps, Lu Ming, had lost his life. Chapter 250. The Great Commander is dead. How is this possible? Great Commander Lu Ming actually died in the hands of a nobody. Below the city gate, seeing Lu Ming being nailed to death by the Azure Dragon halberd and his corpse gradually turning cold and stiff, the expressions of the surviving rebel soldiers and dark shadow guards changed drastically. They looked at Fei Rin with eyes filled with fear, as if they had seen a devil from hell. After all, Lu Ming's cultivation had already broken through to the 9th level of the Star Realm. Although he had temporarily defected and joined Chu Wen's side, his strength was only second to the Dark Shadow Guard's commander, Wei Wuyan. However, Lu Ming, who was so powerful, still couldn't escape death. Furthermore, He had fallen in the hands of Fei Run, who was only at the 4th level of the Star Realm. This made the rebel soldiers and dark shadow guards at the city gate feel even more disbelief. Fei Run, he actually killed Lu Ming. How did this brat become so strong? On the other side, seeing Fei Rin kill Lu Ming with lightning speed, Chu Qian's face was also filled with disbelief. Her vermilion lips slightly opened as she exclaimed in a low voice. After all, Fei Rin had fought with her in the princess manner before. However, at that time, Fei Rin's strength wasn't as abnormal as it was now. Furthermore, he didn't use the power of the Grade 5 spirit treasure, the Azure Dragon Halberd. In the end, he only relied on some small tricks to win. Could it be that he was purposely going easy on me during the competition in the manner last time? Thinking of this, Chu Qian bit her lips as a complicated expression appeared on her face. Lu Ming is already dead. If you don't want to die in vain, you can go up and stop him. After killing Lu Ming with a single strike, Fei Rin stomped on the ground and soared into the air. Then, he took out the Azure Dragon Halberd that was deeply embedded in the city wall. At the same time, strands of origin energy flames gushed out from his palm and burned Lu Ming's corpse into ashes. His eyes were cold and emotionless. Other than Lu Ming, who was at the 9th level of the Star Realm, the rebel soldiers guarding the west gate of the Imperial City, as well as the dozen or so shadow guards who had rushed over as reinforcements, were not very strong. Among them, the one with the highest cultivation was only at the 4th level of the Star Realm, the Shadow Guard leader. As for this 4th level Star Realm Dark Shadow Guard leader, he had already been killed by Chu Jiuxing's palm strike in the chaotic battle earlier. Thus, no one could stop Fei Ren and the Chu siblings from leaving the city. Although they had received the order to guard the city gates, under the intimidation of Fei Ren's strength, the surviving rebel soldiers and the Dark Shadow Squad looked at each other with fear and hesitation. For a moment, no one dared to obstruct him. The scene instantly turned silent. After all, the scene of Lu Ming's death was still vivid in their minds. Go! Seeing that the rebel soldiers and Dark Shadow Guards were intimidated by his strength, Fei Rin knew that he had achieved his goal. He immediately put away the Azure Dragon Halberd behind him and at the same time used the great flying earth burrowing technique, turning into an afterimage and flying out of the city at a very fast speed. Sister, let's go. Immediately after, Chu Jiuxing also extended his hand to support Chu Qian, who was somewhat exhausted, and also quickly left the west gate of the Imperial City, flying towards the outside world. Thump! Before he left, he suddenly turned around to look at the burning and billowing smoke of the ruined Imperial City behind him. A trace of unwillingness appeared on Chu Jiuxing's determined face, and in the next moment, he clenched his teeth and retracted his gaze, his figure gradually disappearing into the distance. Imperial City, Inner City District, boom! Another deafening explosion resounded in all directions. In the next moment, Chu Tianyang's figure rapidly plummeted from a height of several hundred meters. Blood splattered across the sky before he finally crashed heavily onto the ground, leaving a bottomless pit in the ground. There were faint traces of Yuan power spiraling around the pit, seemingly indicating that the power of this attack was not to be underestimated. Pucci. After spitting out a mouthful of thick blood, Chu Tianyang, who was in the pit, was severely injured. His face was pale, and the aura on his body had also decreased. At this moment, he couldn't even move a finger, as if he had completely lost his ability to fight. Chu Tianyang, the time limit of the soul-burning secret technique has passed. What do you have to fight with this king? The wings of elemental energy slowly dissipated, and in the next moment, Chu Wen's figure also descended from the sky, landing in the pit. At the same time, his eyes were filled with coldness and killing intent as he looked at Chu Tianyang. If you want to kill me, it's up to you. Chu Wen, your actions will sooner or later lead the Dachu dynasty to destruction. Shut up. Chu Tianyang's breathing was weak as he spoke with difficulty. However, before he could finish his sentence, Chu Wen angrily interrupted him. At the same time, he raised his hand and smashed towards the top of Chu Tianyang's head. Bam! Elemental energy instantly exploded, and in the next moment, Chu Tianyang's voice also came to an abrupt end. At the same time, his entire head shattered into pieces, and he completely died. My weak and ignorant royal brother, just watch from the underworld. Under the leadership of this king, the Dachu dynasty will reach its peak from today onwards. Glancing at Chu Tianyang's corpse in the pit, Chu Wen's vulture eyes faintly flashed with a trace of fanaticism. In the next moment, his figure once again soared into the air, flying straight into the depths of the palace. His speed was extremely fast, as if he still had some more important things to do. At this point, following the death of the great Chu Emperor, Chu Tianyang, and the complete fall of the imperial city, the outcome of this internal conflict within the royal family was also set. In the entire Dacha dynasty, there was no longer any power that could contend against Chu Wen. Imperial City, Alchemist Guild, is it over? In the end, His Majesty was still unable to stop Chu Wen. From ancient times until now, power has always been bloody and merciless. Thus, brothers fight and kill each other. Looking in the direction of the Imperial Palace, he noticed that the aura of the collision of the two astonishing Yuanli in the center of the Imperial Palace was gradually dissipating. At this time, Situlai also let out a long sigh, then helplessly shook his head, and his old face was filled with mixed feelings. Although the Alchemist Guild did not stand on any side in this internal conflict within the royal family, the other party was after all the former ruler of a country. Moreover, in private, his relationship with Chu Tianyang was quite good. Therefore, when he saw the other party die tragically at the hands of his former brother, Situ Lai's state of mind also fluctuated. "Uncle Situ, you're looking for me?" At this time, Lu Xiaoxiao, who was wearing a purple dress, also gently pushed open the door. Then, she looked at Situ Lai, who was sighing, and her beautiful eyes were faintly unnatural. This time, such a big commotion had happened in the Imperial City. Although she lived deep in the Alchemist Guild, Lu Xiaoxiao was very clear about what had happened in her heart. However, Sitalai in front of her had grounded her for the past few days, so she did not know the specific situation of the outside world at this time. "Xiao, you're here." Seeing Lu Xiaoxiao appear, Sitalai's old face immediately revealed a trace of a smile, and the gloominess between his brows dissipated. These few days, he did not let Lu Xiaoxiao go out, because he had his own difficulties. Long before the World Hero competition began, Situlai had a premonition that the Imperial City might not be peaceful in the next few days. However, he was only a vice president of the Alchemist Guild, and his strength was limited. Therefore, other than quietly watching, the only thing he could do was to protect Lu Xiaoxiao in front of him from harm. Chapter 251. Uncle Situ, is there chaos within the Chu clan? Lu Xiaoxiao took the initiative to ask before Situ Lai opened his mouth. She seemed to have expected something in her heart. "Looks like I can't hide it from you. That's right. Chu Tianyang has already died, and King Jin, Chu Wen, is about to ascend to the throne. The original imperial family and the Chu clan will also undergo a reshuffle. I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse for the people of the Dacha dynasty." Sitalai nodded his head gently and sighed. Although this internal conflict within the imperial family did not have much to do with the Alchemist Association, without the skin, what can the hair be attached to? If the imperial city continued to be in turmoil, the members of the Alchemist Association would unavoidably be affected. After all, there was no law and order within the imperial city. There was war and killing everywhere. I hope that the world can be peaceful. Although King Jin, Chu Wen, has seized power to ascend to the throne, he is still a member of the Chu clan. The chaos within the imperial city should not last for long. "Uncle Situ, you need not be too worried." Lu Xiaoxiao pursed her lips and stepped forward, after which she softly spoke. Her tone was filled with comfort. "The imperial city is so chaotic. I wonder how Fei Run is now. Could he have been killed by the rebel army?" At this moment, a gray figure suddenly appeared in Lu Xiaoxiao's mind. That feeling was both foreign and familiar. Damn it. Why did I think of him? That fellow is both arrogant and annoying. What does his life or death have to do with me? Lu Xiaoxiao shook her head again. Immediately, she withdrew her thoughts. The expression on her beautiful face was complicated. Although she had not interacted with Fei Run for a long time, his performance in the pill tower back then had stunned everyone. He could be called a genius. Outside the Imperial City, on a cliff. Brother, this place is at least 300 miles away from the Imperial City. We should have shaken off those pursuers. Chu Qian stopped and extended her hand to wipe the sweat on her forehead. Her beautiful eyes blinked as she looked at Chu Jiuxing in front of her. Yes, we should be out of danger for the time being. Sister, are you all right? Chu Jiuxing nodded. His aura was also fluctuating. Then he muttered to himself, his face faintly pale. Even though Chu Jiuxing had reached the 7th level of the Star Realm, he still felt physically and mentally exhausted after the fierce battle. If he hadn't been trying to protect his sister, he wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Brother, I'm fine. You should rest first. Chu Qian frowned slightly as she looked at Chu Jiuxing, who was panting heavily. After which, she spoke with some heartache. Shua. At this moment, Fei Ren's figure rushed out of the dense forest behind him and came to the cliff. Before retreating from the Imperial City, in order to not leave any traces for the pursuers, he took the initiative to cover their retreat. Not only did he kill many of the rebel soldiers who came to support them, but he also killed a group of assassins from the Shadow Squad. Moreover, without the burden of the Chu siblings, Fei Ren could summon the Immortal refining cauldron without restraint, refining and absorbing the remaining energy essence of the corpses of the martial warriors. At the same time, he could continuously strengthen his cultivation and physique. At this point, the total amount of elemental energy in Fei Ren's body had increased by nearly half, and he was not far from breaking through to the 5th level of the Star Realm. Brother Fei Ren, I have no way of repaying you for saving my life this time. Please accept my bow. Seeing that Fei Ren had returned safely, Chu Jiuxing immediately knelt down on one knee and bowed deeply towards Fei Ren with a sincere tone. This time, the siblings were able to safely leave the Imperial City. Other than the protection of Su Tianxing and the others, Fei Ren also played an important role. If not for Fei Ren killing Lu Ming, Chu Jiuxing and Chu Qian might not have been able to escape the encirclement, even if they used all their strength. Crown Prince is too polite. Seeing Chu Jiuxing suddenly kneel down in front of him, Fei Ren was also a little surprised. He immediately leaned forward and helped the other party up with a helpless expression. In fact, he had no intention of interfering in this royal family's dispute. But as the saying goes, if you want to save someone, you have to go all the way. Now that he had promised to return Chu Tianyang a favor, he naturally wouldn't give up halfway. Ugh! As he slowly stood up, Chu Jiuxing's body staggered. He then coughed, and his face became even paler. Crown Prince, it seems that you are still hiding something from me. Seeing this, Fei Ren narrowed his eyes, as if he had guessed something. Brother Fei Ren, why do you say that? Facing Fei Ren's gaze, Chu Jiuxing laughed dryly, but his expression was a little unnatural. Is it worth it for you to do this? Fei Ren did not speak bluntly, and instead asked a question. At the same time, his gaze was fixed on Chu Jiuxing, and his tone was like thunder. Maybe it's worth it. As if his thoughts were seen through by Fei Ren, Chu Jiuxing pursed his lips and smiled bitterly, but he didn't say anything. Fei Ren, what are you talking about? Brother, what's wrong with you? Seeing Fei Ren and Chu Jiuxing's somewhat inexplicable words, Chu Qian was also puzzled. She immediately spoke up, and a trace of anxiety appeared on her pretty face. He has been poisoned by the dove poison, and the poison has already penetrated deep into his bone marrow. The dove poison's toxicity is very strong. Without an antidote, even a high-star realm martial artist won't be able to live for more than half a day. Even an immortal can't save him. Fei Ren glanced at Chu Qian beside him and frowned slightly. After a while, he slowly said, If I'm not wrong, you were already poisoned before you rushed to the princess's residence to save him. It must be said that it's a miracle that you can last until now. Cough, cough. Brother Fei Ren's eyesight is still so sharp. I really didn't misjudge you. A trace of black blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. In the next moment, Chu Jiuxing also coughed dryly. His expression became increasingly weak and pale. It seemed that, just as Fei Ren had said, the poison in his body had already penetrated deep into his bone marrow. He had just been secretly holding on. "Brother, you're poisoned? You're so stupid. Why didn't you say so earlier?" Hearing this, even if Chu Qian was stupid, she still understood something. She immediately stepped forward and pulled Chu Jiuxing in her arms, crying softly. Originally, she thought that she had already escaped danger, but she didn't expect that Chu Jiuxing's body had already been poisoned by the dove poison. Moreover, the poison had already penetrated his bone marrow to the point where even an immortal could not save him. "Sister, as long as you can live, it doesn't matter if I die. You are the person that royal father loves the most. Promise me that you will live well and revive the great Chu royal family in the future." Chu Jiuxing, who was at his limit, grinned and spoke with difficulty as he reached out his hand and gently touched Chu Qian's hair. "Brother, I don't want to. I don't want you to die. I don't want to be alone." Seeing that Chu Jiuxing's aura was getting weaker and weaker, and that his hands and feet had become somewhat black and cold, Chu Qian also sobbed with tears in her eyes. "Fei Ren, since you can see that my brother is poisoned, you must have a way to save him, right?" Turning back to look at Fei Ren behind her, Chu Qian's voice was filled with pleading. She was no longer as arrogant and willful as a princess in the past. For a moment, her pretty face turned red, and at the same time, she could not help but make people feel sorry and pity for her. The poison in the crown prince's body has already penetrated deep into his bone marrow. Unless there's a mighty figure above the martial spirit realm, there's nothing we can do. In the face of Chu Qian's pleading, Fei Ren shook his head. It was not that he did not want to save him, but with his current strength and methods, he could not save Chu Jiuxing, who was already poisoned to the bone marrow. Even if he had the immortal refining cauldron, it would be useless. Chapter 252. Sister, don't be sad. Promise me that you'll live on. Looking at the heartbroken Chu Qian in his arms, Chu Jiuxing's pale face showed a hint of pity. He immediately comforted her in a soft voice. "Brother Fei Ren, I have a favor to ask of you." Chu Jiuxing sighed softly and looked at Fei Ren again. He seemed to have something important to entrust to him. "Please speak, Crown Prince. If I can do it, I'll do it." Fei Ren was not too surprised by Chu Jiuxing's dying request. He merely nodded. In order to protect his sister, Chu Jiuxing had persisted until now despite knowing that he was poisoned. It had to be said that he was a good man who valued relationships and was worthy of his respect. "Take good care of my sister," Chu Jiuxing said weakly. "This?" Faced with Chu Jiuxing's dying request, Fei Ren hesitated. His expression was slightly awkward. As the saying went, it was difficult to hide a dragon in shallow water. Fei Ren possessed the immortal refining divine cauldron, an immortal treasure. His martial path was limitless. In the future, he was destined to explore the vast world outside. He could not stay in the Dacha dynasty in the southeastern region and take care of Chu Qian. "Crown Prince Yug, Puchi." Just as Fei Ren was about to speak, Chu Jiuxing spat out another mouthful of black, poisonous blood. Then his eyes rolled back, and his head tilted to the side. His aura suddenly disappeared. He had died from the poison. "Brother." When she sensed that Chu Jiuxing's aura had completely disappeared, Chu Qian was also heartbroken. Her tears fell like rain. In just half a day, she had fallen from the high and mighty Princess Royal to a wanderer. Not only did she have to worry about being hunted down by her former royal uncle, Chu Wan, but she had also lost several close relatives. This was unbearable for Chu Qian, and she broke down on the spot. "Sigh, looks like I can't escape from this whirlpool." When he saw that Chu Jiuxing had died, Fei Ren sighed inwardly. His brows gradually furrowed. Although he didn't want to see this result, but man proposes, God disposes. Now that Chu Jiuxing was dead and Fei Ren was planning to leave the Dacha dynasty, he didn't mind taking Chu Qian with him. If Chu Qian didn't resist, Then although he wasn't taking care of her, he could at least keep Chu Qian away from danger in the future. Princess, the crown prince is dead. The world is unpredictable, and the heavenly Tao is unpredictable. My condolences. A few minutes later, seeing that Chu Qian's sad mood had calmed down a little, Fei Ren immediately stepped forward and said in a low voice, "Dead, all dead. I don't have any relatives now." As if she didn't hear Fei Ren's comforting words, Chu Qian was still in a daze. She hugged Chu Jiuxing's corpse tightly in her arms, and her gaze was slightly dazed. It was as if a lifetime had passed. It made one's heart ache. "Forget it. Let this girl calm down first." Seeing this, Fei Ren didn't say anything else. At the same time, he slowly left. His body turned into a black afterimage and disappeared into the dense forest behind the cliff. Although the pursuers behind them had all been dealt with by him, a few unfamiliar auras of Yuan Qi had appeared again. Moreover, they were continuously approaching this cliff. At this moment, Chu Qian was too heartbroken. Perhaps she didn't notice it immediately, but Fei Ren was different. Ever since he stepped onto the martial path, he had experienced countless life and death battles, and his sensitivity to danger was extraordinary. Although Fei Ren wasn't sure that these unfamiliar auras approaching the cliff were Chu Wen's pursuers, they definitely didn't come with good intentions. In the towering, dense forest, ancient trees crisscrossed, and a gentle breeze blew. "Father, are you sure that the boy called Fei Ren is in front?" Following closely behind a black-robed old man, Long Jingqiu had a doubtful expression on his face, and then he probed. Ever since he became enemies with Fei Ren, Long Jingqiu and the Long family behind him couldn't sleep or eat in peace. After all, the other party's talent was not weak, and everyone had seen it during the World Heroes competition. If they couldn't get rid of the threat of Fei Ren, there would be endless trouble for their Long family. There's no mistake. Choer, you have to understand that if you cut the grass, you have to dig up the roots. If that boy isn't eliminated, our Long family will definitely suffer in the future. The black-robed old man's eyes were sinister, and his aura was strong. He was the patriarch of the Long family, a first-rate force in the imperial city, Long Zhenwu. He was one of the famous 9th-level star realm martial artists. "I understand. Father, it's all up to you later. You must kill that boy." In the face of Long Zhenwu's warning, Long Jingqiu nodded heavily, and a trace of ruthlessness appeared in his eyes. "Fei Ren, you're dead meat." Long Jingqiu's murderous intent intensified. Previously, his cultivation was weak, and he wasn't a match for Fei Ren. However, now that the patriarch of the Long family, Long Zhenwu, had made a move, he was confident that he could kill Fei Ren. "I was wondering what kind of scoundrel was this, but it turns out to be you, the fish that escaped the net." At this moment, as the father and son of the Long family were rushing at full speed, a cold and emotionless male voice suddenly sounded in the air. "Not good." Hearing the voice, Long Zhenwu's expression changed drastically. However, before he could react, Fei Ren's figure circled behind him like a ghost. At the same time, he appeared in front of Long Jingqiu, his handsome face as calm as still water. Fei Ren. Seeing Fei Ren so close to him, Long Jingqiu immediately cried out in surprise. His face was pale, as if he was frightened by the terrifying speed of his opponent. "Die!" The corners of Fei Ren's mouth curled up slightly. In the next moment, his arms emitted a crimson golden light as he suddenly threw out a palm strike. Bang! Pucci! Fei Ren's elemental energy instantly erupted. Long Jingqiu was unable to react or resist in the slightest. His chest was ruthlessly pierced through by Fei Ren's palm, causing blood to splatter in all directions. After that, his body fell heavily to the ground, turning into an ice-cold corpse. He did not even have the chance to let out a scream. Choer, seeing Long Jingqiu killed by Fei Ren with a single palm strike, Long Zhenwu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He flew into a rage, and blue veins appeared on his forehead. The dead Long Jingqiu was not only his only son, but also a rare genius among the direct descendants of the Long family. In order to nurture him into a martial artist of the 3rd level of the Star Realm, Long Jinwu and the Long family behind him had spent a lot of effort and resources. Now that Long Jingqiu was dead, Long Jinwu, as the patriarch of the Long family, naturally couldn't remain calm. He was completely enraged. Bastard, this old man will definitely tear you into 1,000 pieces. Long Jinwu roared. In the next moment, he also circulated his boundless origin power. At the same time, his body shot out explosively towards Fei Ren. His murky eyes were filled with killing intent. It was obvious that he wanted to turn Fei Ren into ashes to vent the hatred in his heart. Dharma Golden Arm, Azure Dragon Halberd. Facing the crazy Long Jinwu, Fei Ren didn't hesitate. The crimson golden light on his arms became even brighter. At the same time, he pulled out the Azure Dragon Halberd from his back, circulated all his origin power, and thrust it forward to meet Long Jinwu's attack head-on. Puchi! The halberd pierced through the air, and golden light illuminated the world. In just a breath's time, with the support of the golden origin power of the Dharma 1000 transformation technique, the power of the Azure Dragon Halberd increased by several times. It actually pierced through Long Jinwu in front of him. At the same time, the protective origin power dissipated, and a large amount of blood splattered in all directions, dyeing the surrounding forest red. Bang! After his body was pierced through by the Azure Dragon Halberd, Long Jinwu's aura also plummeted. His old face was filled with shock and fear. His lips trembled slightly, but he couldn't utter a single word. In the end, his body swayed and fell to the ground. He was completely dead. He couldn't be more dead. She simply couldn't summon up any fighting spirit. If Chu Wen's men chased after her, her situation would be extremely dangerous. Although Chu Qian's personality was a little unruly and willful, Fei Ren knew that she wasn't a bad person. Moreover, due to Chu Jiuxing's last words, Fei Ren had to take her away from the Dacha dynasty. As for whether Chu Qian was willing to leave with him, that was another matter. Princess, this person has passed away. It's time to leave. When he returned to the cliff, he saw that Chu Qian was still staring at Chu Jiuxing's body in a daze. Her delicate body knelt on the ground. Fei Ren frowned slightly and then reminded her, Fei Ren, don't you think I deserve to die? Chu Qian didn't get up. Her back was still facing Fei Ren as she said faintly. At the same time, her eyes were somewhat absent-minded. Princess, why do you say that? Hearing this, Fei Ren's expression froze for a moment before he spoke. If it wasn't for saving me, Father wouldn't have died, Uncle Fong wouldn't have died, and even Big Brother wouldn't have died. It's all because of me. Chu Qian bit her lips as tears fell from her beautiful eyes. They flowed down her cheeks and then fell to the grass. Her appearance was heart-wrenching. This isn't your fault. Only by living can you do what you want to do. Princess, where there's life, there's hope. Whether you want to take revenge in the future or be an ordinary person, only by living can you make this choice. It's not just me. I'm sure your father and the crown prince think the same in the underworld. After sighing, Fei Ren shook his head and explained. Now that he had said this, if Chu Qian still couldn't walk out of her grief, even he wouldn't be able to do anything. After all, Fei Ren didn't have much experience in coaxing girls. Moreover, this girl's identity was not simple. She was the former princess of the Dacha dynasty. I understand. Fei Ren, although I used to think that you were annoying and insensible, it seems that you're not bad. You're a good person. Thank you. Perhaps because her tears had dried up, or perhaps because she was touched by Fei Ren's words. Chu Qian slowly got up and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. Although her face was still slightly red, it was obvious that her emotions were gradually calming down. Princess, you're too polite. Seeing Chu Qian's calm expression, as if she had matured a lot in an instant, Fei Ren rubbed his nose and replied, Chu Wan, I swear today, one day in the future, I will kill you with my own hands as a sacrifice to Father Emperor, Mother Empress, and Brother Emperor. Looking at Chu Jiuxing's corpse on the ground, Chu Qian's chest rose and fell as she took a deep breath. Then, She looked in the direction of the imperial city as a trace of determination, and determination appeared in her beautiful eyes. This girl's talent and comprehension are not weak. Now, the thought of revenge has stimulated her inner blood. It seems that Chu Wen won't be able to sit on the throne for long. At this moment, Chu Qian's change was seen by Fei Run. He could not help but secretly praise her. With her talent and comprehension, if she cultivated successfully in the future, she might have a chance to take revenge. Princess, there's no time to lose. Let's leave this place first. Stepping forward, Fei Ren immediately said. Although they had left the imperial city, this place was not too far from the imperial city. It was still somewhat dangerous, just like how the father and son of the Long family rushed over when they heard the news. Where to? Facing Fei Ren's suggestion, Chu Qian's pretty face was slightly stunned. Just as the other party had expected, she had lived in the imperial city and the princess residence since she was young. Now that the imperial city had fallen, she had not thought about where she would go next. A very safe place, but it's a secret for now. Fei Ren spoke again with a sincere tone. Fei Ren, you don't have any ulterior motives for this princess, do you? Hearing this, Chu Qian's eyes suddenly widened. Then, she stared at Fei Ren, who was in front of her. Her tone could not help but reveal a trace of suspicion. After all, the other party's mysteriousness made it difficult for her not to feel vigilant. Moreover, there were only a man and a woman. In addition, Chu Tianyang, Chu Jiuxing, and the others had died one after another. At this moment, Chu Qian's heart was becoming more and more fragile and sensitive. Other than herself, it was difficult for her to easily trust anyone, including Fei Ren, who looked harmless. Chapter 254. Princess, do you think I'm that kind of person? Looking at Chu Qian, whose beautiful eyes were wide open in front of him, Fei Ren felt a little speechless. He had to admit that with Chu Qian's appearance, she could indeed be called a beauty. However, he had seen too many beautiful women over the years. Not to mention that he did not have any feelings for Chu Qian. The Chu Qian in front of him was not the type that Fei Ren liked. Yes, I think you are. Nodding her head, Chu Qian still had a solemn expression in the face of Fei Ren's question. Princess, if you continue to stay in the Dacha dynasty, you will easily be hunted down by Chu Wen and the others. The best way is to leave the Dacha dynasty. I can help you leave. In the face of Chu Qian's suspicion, Fei Ren only shrugged and then slowly explained. Now that he had said so, if the other party still did not trust him, then he had no choice but to leave alone. I'm just teasing you. I know that you don't have any evil intentions in your heart. From a person's eyes, you can see his inner thoughts. Your eyes are clear and determined. Just as I said earlier, Fei Ren, you are indeed a good person. Looking at Fei Ren's solemn expression, Chu Qian's pretty face could not help but laugh. Then, she covered her mouth and laughed softly. This girl, she was crying her eyes out earlier. Now, she has the mood to make fun of me. Seeing this scene, Fei Ren's face immediately froze. Then, he touched his nose and secretly said in his heart, Princess, let's go. Collecting his thoughts, Fei Ren also took a step forward and extended his right hand toward Chu Qian in front of him. Previously, Chu Jiuxing entrusted Chu Qian to him before his death. Fei Ren naturally would not leave her alone. At the very least, he had to bring Chu Qian away from the Dacha dynasty. As for whether Chu Qian could successfully take revenge in the future and revive the former Chu royal family, only time could tell. What are you doing? Seeing Fei Ren's right hand extended over, Chu Qian's pretty face was also stunned. She did not react for a moment. Grab my hand. I'll take you away from here. When he saw Chu Qian's hesitation, Fei Ren spoke again. No. Chu Qian shook her head and rejected decisively. As the former princess royal, aside from Chu Jiuxing, Uncle Fong, and the others, she had very little contact with the opposite sex, let alone holding the hand of a stranger. Even though Fei Ren had saved her life before, she still wasn't willing to do so. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. This princess has never. What are you doing? Before she finished speaking, Fei Rin's figure once again moved forward. At the same time, he carried Chu Qian in front of him and rushed into the sky. Chu Qian was like a frightened deer as she let out a soft cry. Her beautiful face was flushed red. "Princess, you have to hold on to me tightly. If you fall, you'll lose your life." Ignoring Chu Qian's cry, Fei Rin's tone was indifferent. At the same time, the aura of the origin power wings behind him grew stronger. Now that he had cultivated the great flying earth-burrowing technique to the greater mastery realm, not only could he form origin power wings to fly in the air, but his speed was also comparable to an ordinary level 1 martial master expert. Out of this guy, he has already mastered the ability to fly in the air. Her delicate figure struggled for a while in Fei Rin's embrace. In the next moment, Chu Qian also discovered the pair of Yuan power wings behind the other party's back. Immediately, her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. Her red lips slightly parted, and for a moment, she actually forgot to resist. Who? In the clouds high up in the sky, gusts of wind whistled past. It was unknown if Fei Rin's reminder was effective or if she was really afraid of falling, but at this moment, Chu Qian actually gave up struggling. Her entire body shrank into Fei Rin's embrace. At the same time, her hands were tightly wrapped around his neck, and her beautiful face was slightly red. The origin power wings spread out and soared. Fei Rin's figure was like a gray meteor that traversed the sky, flying into the distance. Dacha Dynasty, Qingyang County, outside the Forgotten Sorrow Valley. Swoosh! A gust of wind swept past. In the next moment, two figures slowly descended from the sky. One of them had a delicate face and a determined expression. It was Fei Rin, who had hurriedly left the imperial city. Chu Qian, who was beside Fei Rin, was blushing. At this moment, she looked at the other party with a faintly complicated expression. Forgotten Sorrow Valley, I'm back. Looking at the familiar scenery in front of him, Fei Rin's heart was filled with emotions. Although there was the isolation of the formation's power, he was certain that the place in front of him was the entrance to the Forgotten Sorrow Valley. Fei Rin, where's this place? Seeing Fei Rin standing quietly on the spot, Chu Qian bit her lips and couldn't help but ask. Her expression was a little unnatural, as though she hadn't recovered from the shock of being in Fei Rin's embrace. Although they were flying in the sky, the imperial city was still tens of thousands of miles away from the Qingyang County. Chu Qian obediently stayed in Fei Rin's embrace for half a day. After all, as the princess royal in the past, she had never held the hand of a stranger before. She didn't expect that today Fei Rin would take advantage of her. Forgotten Sorrow Valley. An old friend of mine lives here. In the face of Chu Qian's question, Fei Rin turned around and grinned. Although his smile was harmless, Chu Qian felt that it was a little sly and cunning. Forgotten Sorrow Valley? But there's nothing here. As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Qian frowned and looked around. There was only a cliff and a waterfall in front of the two of them, surrounded by a vast forest. As for the Forgotten Sorrow Valley that Fei Rin mentioned, there wasn't even a shadow of it. Princess, this place is isolated by a formation. That's why you can't see the true appearance of the Forgotten Sorrow Valley. Moreover, the grade of this formation isn't low. It's at least at the peak of the yellow level. Even High Star Realm warriors can't break it, so we can only rely on this. Seeing Chu Qian's confused face, Fei Rin grinned and took out a small black bead from the spirit ring on his finger. This black bead was a souvenir given to him by Shunlan when he left the Forgotten Sorrow Valley. According to Shunlan, this black bead was useless and was just a small souvenir. However, Fei Rin later found out that this black bead could temporarily isolate the formation from the outside world of the Forgotten Sorrow Valley. At the same time, he could enter and leave freely. However, this effect could only last for 30 minutes, and there was a limit to the number of times he could use it. Originally, Fei Rin thought that he wouldn't need to use this thing. In the end, he still came back. Go! With a wave of his hand, the black bead in Fei Rin's palm shot out in the next moment. At the same time, it emitted a mysterious aura. Then, the surroundings slowly changed, and a hidden valley entrance appeared in front of the two of them. Chapter 255. There's really an otherworldly paradise here. Looking at the entrance of the valley that suddenly appeared in front of her, Chu Qian was shocked and amazed. Swoosh! Glancing at the surprised Chu Qian beside him, Fei Ren smiled and did not say anything. Then, he turned around and rushed toward the entrance of the valley at the speed of the wind. In the courtyard of the bamboo house in the Forgotten Sorrow Valley, a young girl in a blue dress was quietly tending to the herbs on the ground. These herbs were of different shapes and sizes and emitted a strange fragrance that penetrated one's heart. It seemed to be very valuable. Someone has barged into the valley. Suddenly, the young girl in the blue dress stood up. At the same time, her beautiful eyes looked at the outside world not far away. Her face was slightly surprised, as if she had noticed something. Could it be him? No, they're too unfamiliar, Yuan Leoris. It shouldn't be that guy. A strange yet familiar figure slowly appeared in her heart. In the next moment, Shenlan shook her head. She remembered that she had only given Fei Ren a black pearl that could temporarily break the formation of the Forgotten Sorrow Valley. As for the others, they could not even find the location of the Forgotten Sorrow Valley, let alone barge into it. I'd like to see who dares to barge into the Forgotten Sorrow Valley. Thinking of this, Shenlan's lips curled up slightly. In the next moment, she took out a small jade flute. The jade flute had exquisite patterns on it, and it did not seem to be an ordinary item. Swoosh! Shenlan's jade feet touched the ground gently. In the next moment, she left the bamboo house. Her delicate body turned into a beautiful shadow and rushed toward the dense forest outside. Finally, she disappeared. In a dense forest in the Forgotten Sorrow Valley, Fei Ren, what the hell is this place? Why do I feel that this place is so gloomy? Following closely behind Fei Ren, Chu Qian could not help but speak. Her beautiful eyes revealed some uneasiness. As far as the eye could see, all she could see was a pitch-black forest. Not only were there no beasts in sight, but there were also no humans in sight. It was as if it was a desolate land. The atmosphere was very strange, so she was a little scared. It can't be helped. That friend of mine is rather special. She likes to raise some strange little poisonous insects and creatures. Naturally, there won't be any wild beasts, insects, or birds living here. Furthermore, she lives alone, and the outside world is isolated by a formation. Right now, apart from the two of us, there is no one else here. But Princess, you don't have to worry. It's very safe here. Fei Ren turned around and glanced at the somewhat nervous Chu Qian. He immediately smiled faintly, as if he was comforting her not to worry. Wait, what did you say? Little poisonous bugs and poisonous creatures. Hearing this, Chu Qian's beautiful eyes suddenly widened. At the same time, she took a step forward and stood in front of Fei Ren. Fei Ren, are you kidding me? This princess is most afraid of insects. No, this princess can't stay here. A hint of panic surged on her pretty face as Chu Qian immediately exclaimed. Although she cultivated origin power and had extraordinary talent and comprehension, and was already a martial artist at the 5th level of the Star Realm, she had always been afraid of insects since she was young. This was her fatal weakness. Moreover, Fei Ren was not talking about ordinary insects, but little poisonous insects that were highly poisonous. Disgusting. When she thought of those slowly wriggling, ugly little poisonous insects appearing in front of her, Chu Qian's delicate body could not help but tremble slightly. It was as if she had goosebumps. A hint of disgust also surged on her originally delicate face. I didn't expect this girl to be so fearless. She's actually afraid of insects. Seeing Chu Qian shaking her head repeatedly and standing on the spot, unwilling to take another step forward with him, Fei Ren was secretly resentful. At the same time, he had a helpless expression on his face. In his impression, the other party had always been arrogant and willful. Even when they escaped from the Imperial City together and fought with Chu Wen's group of shadow guards and Commander Wei Wuyan, Chu Qian had never been afraid or retreated. Now, she actually surrendered in the face of some little poisonous insects. This was something that Fei Run had never expected. Who dares to trespass into Forget Sorrow Valley? Just when Fei Run was pondering how to convince Chu Qian not to be afraid, a cold and delicate voice suddenly sounded out from afar. In the next moment, a young girl in the prime of her youth who wore a long blue dress and a silver ornament on her head slowly walked over. Her appearance was beautiful and elegant. Surprisingly, it was Shenlan whom Fei Run had not seen for a long time. "Miss Shen, it's me, Fei Run." Seeing Shenlan suddenly appear in front of him, Fei Run immediately cupped his fists and bowed slightly. That year in Azure Sun County, Fei Run had once engaged in a life and death battle with the Bloodblade Sex Master, Chao Shun. Although he managed to kill Chao Shun in the end, he was heavily injured as well. If it wasn't for Shenlan, who was kind enough to rescue him and bring him back to Forgotten Sorrow Valley to recuperate, he would probably have died in the wilderness. Therefore, Shenlan was also Fei Ren's savior and was worthy of his great respect. "Oh, it's you, Fei Run. You're really back." Seeing that the person who came was indeed Fei Run, Shenlan also exclaimed softly. She looked surprised and seemed to be a little surprised. "It's me, Miss Shun. I trust you have been well since we last met." Nodding his head, Fei Run rubbed his nose and grinned. Although the time he spent healing in Forget Sorrow Valley was short, it was one of the few leisurely days he had in the past few years. He didn't have to worry about being hunted down by enemies, and he didn't have to cultivate martial arts desperately. He just quietly enjoyed the countryside life, like an ordinary mortal in the secular world. 5th level Star Realm, Fei Run. I didn't expect your strength to improve so quickly. The medicinal wine I spent on you back then was not wasted. As if sensing the extraordinary aura on Fei Ren's body, Shenlan also put her hands on her hips. A trace of gratification and playfulness appeared on her beautiful face. She no longer looked as aggressive as before. For a moment, she actually looked a little cute. "It's SOSO. Miss Shun is overpraising me." In the face of Shenlan's praise, Fei Ren only scratched his head and smiled modestly. "Hey, Fei Run. Who is she to you? Do you know her? Is this girl the friend you mentioned?" On the side, seeing Fei Run and Shenlan chatting enthusiastically, Chu Qian, who was in a hurry to leave, stopped in her tracks. The next moment, she pursed her lips and spoke. At this moment, her tone seemed a little unnatural and jealousy overflowed. After all, as the former Princess Royal, Chu Qian was used to the feeling of being sought after by tens of thousands of people. Now that she saw Fei Ren ignoring her and chatting enthusiastically with the mysterious Shenlan in front of her, Chu Qian felt a little dissatisfied. Although she wasn't very close to Fei Ren, they had gone through life and death together. Moreover, Chu Jiuxing had entrusted her with his dying wish. Therefore, Chu Qian believed that Fei Ren would definitely not ignore her and take care of her feelings. "Girl? Little girl, who are you talking about? Rude people are really annoying." As soon as she finished speaking, Shenlan also noticed Chu Qian behind Fei Ren and immediately spoke coldly. At the same time, she put her hands on her hips as if she was a little dissatisfied that Chu Qian called her girl. Her tone was stern. After all, although her figure was a little petite, she was a few years older than Chu Qian. Chapter 256. My name is Chu Qian. I'm not an impolite person. Chu Qian snorted softly in the face of Shenlan's gaze. After which, she pursed her red lips and spoke. It was as though she had returned to her cold and aloof attitude when she was the eldest princess. Her aura was not inferior at all. "Princess." Facing Chu Qian's self-introduction, Shenlan was stunned at first. Then, she looked at Fei Run beside her. Since she could remember, she had spent most of her time with her father, Shun Tianjun, the miracle doctor in the Forget Worry Valley. She rarely went out of the valley unless she needed to collect some rare herbs and fruits. Only then would she leave the Forget Worry Valley temporarily. Therefore, Chu Qian did not know much about the Dacha dynasty and the affairs of the outside world. Naturally, she did not know the background of the princess in front of her. Miss Shun, her name is Chu Qian. She's the princess of the great Chu royal family. She can be considered as a friend of mine. Seeing Shun Lan looking at him, Fei Ren immediately understood something. He then explained with a dry smile on his face. Oh, so she's a princess of the royal family. No wonder. Why am I so arrogant? As a princess, I didn't expect you to be so impolite. You're just like a little girl. Hearing this, Shun Lan immediately knew the background of Chu Qian. Then, she crossed her arms in front of her chest and said lightly. However, her tone was still a little playful. After all, as the Valley Master of the Forget Worry Valley and the daughter of the Miracle Doctor, Shun Lan's temper was straightforward. She could talk and laugh with Fei Ren, but she did not give any face to Chu Qian. Her words were full of mockery. You dare to scold me? In the face of Shun Lan's soft ridicule, Shun Lan's pretty face was slightly stunned at this moment. In the next moment, she cried out angrily. It seemed that the fury in her heart had been provoked. She immediately took a step forward in an aggressive manner, appearing as though she would attack if there was any disagreement. Sisters, please calm down. This is all my fault, all right? Why don't we? Seeing that the surrounding atmosphere had suddenly become tense, Fei Ren also felt a headache. He hurriedly spoke out to persuade them. At the same time, his figure blocked in front of Chu Qian and Shun Lan, intending to stop this inexplicable battle. After all, two women were enough to put on a show. Although Fei Ren had a lot of dealings with girls, he had no experience in coaxing girls. He couldn't resolve this kind of conflict between women. If it wasn't a last resort, he didn't want to see Chu Qian and Shun Lan quarrel. Scram! Seeing that Fei Ren had stepped forward to stop them, the two women shouted at the same time. Yeah, it's fine. Today's weather is pretty nice. After a dry cough, Fei Ren also swallowed his saliva and consciously retreated to the side. After all, she only wanted to follow her father's dying wish and focus on practicing the 5 poison scripture in the Forgotten Sorrow Valley. As for other matters, she did not care. After a while, Fei Ren and Chu Qian followed Shun Lan back to the courtyard of the bamboo house. I still need to go and get some medicinal ingredients. Fei Ren, you and this girl can sit outside for a while. Shun Lan turned around and glanced at Fei Ren and Chu Qian, who were behind her. She reached out her hand and brushed her black hair behind her ear, after which she let out a faint laugh and walked back into the house. Fei Ren, why didn't you help me just now? This fellow is too much of a bully. She actually said that I was rude just now. TSK, she clearly looks very young. Okay? Did I say anything wrong? Seeing that Shun Lan had turned around and returned to the house, Chu Qian, who was beside her, could not help but open her mouth. At the same time, her beautiful eyes looked at Fei Ren, and her tone could not help but be a little wronged. Princess, please be understanding. Miss Shun Lan was once my savior. If she did not save me back then, I, Fei Ren, would have died without a burial place. Although I have promised the Crown Prince that I would protect and take care of you, you are making it difficult for me. Facing Chu Qian's complaints, Fei Ren also sighed and shook his head. His eyes were filled with helplessness as he looked at Chu Qian. Although the other party was no longer the princess of the past, her arrogant and willful temperament would not change in a short period of time. He could not say much. Chapter 257. She's your savior? How could that be? Hearing this, Chu Qian's face revealed a trace of disbelief. After all, Shun Lan in front of her looked like a 17 or 18 years old girl, and there was no fluctuation of Yuanli on her body. She was obviously an ordinary mortal. An ordinary mortal girl actually saved Fei Ren. This was something that Chu Qian never expected. After all, she had personally witnessed how strong Fei Ren's talent was. Back then, when they were escaping from the Imperial City, Fei Ren had killed Lu Ming, who was the commander of the Steel Corps, with a powerful halberd. It's absolutely true. Miss Shun Lan is not only my savior, but also my friend. Nodding his head, Fei Ren spoke again with a sincere expression. All right, this princess is magnanimous, so I won't argue with her. Looking at Fei Ren's clear and calm eyes, Chu Qian knew that the other party was not lying. She immediately pursed her lips and spoke faintly. It seemed that the princess' temperament in the past had also been restrained a little. Chu Qian could choose not to give face to others, but Fei Ren had saved her life after all. Moreover, if it wasn't for Fei Ren killing Lu Ming, she and Chu Jiuxing wouldn't have been able to escape from the encirclement of the pursuers. Therefore, Chu Qian had always remembered this kindness in her heart. The kindness of a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. Although Chu Qian was the eldest princess in the past, she wasn't a greenhouse flower that only knew how to throw tantrums. After experiencing the changes in her country, she had matured a lot in just a day. Princess, it's great that you can understand. Seeing that Chu Qian had finally let go of her temper, Fei Ren also secretly sighed in relief. Chu Qian and Shunlan's temperament was clear and straightforward. If the two of them really quarreled, he could only watch from the side. He couldn't intervene at all, let alone stop them. Fei Ren, what did you want to say to this lady before? At this time, Shunlan also slowly walked out of the bamboo house. She seemed to have finished fiddling with the herbs in her hands. Her charming face was calm as she looked at Fei Ren opposite her. Miss Shun, there's something I don't know if you know. The Dachu dynasty has changed. Seeing that Shunlan had finally walked out of the bamboo house, Fei Ren also opened his mouth to speak. His tone was somewhat helpless. What happened? Hearing this, Shunlan frowned slightly, as if she didn't understand the meaning behind Fei Ren's words. The emperor, Chu Tianyang, is dead. The former king of Jin, Chu Wan, has ascended to the throne. This man is ambitious and his methods are cruel and vicious. He has already purged all the descendants of the royal family. Now, only one of them has escaped from the imperial city alive. I'm worried that Miss Shan will be in danger if you continue to stay in the Forget Sorrow Valley, so I'm here to inform you. With a sigh, Fei Ren explained. The great Chu Emperor is dead? Only one of the descendants of the royal family escaped. Could that person be? Hearing this, Shunlan was stunned for a moment. Then, her beautiful eyes flashed as she looked at Chu Qian, who was beside Fei Ren. She seemed to have understood something. That's right, it's me. My father, brother, and mother all died in the hands of that Chu Wan. I once swore that if I were to succeed in my cultivation in the future, I would definitely tear that bastard Chu Wan into pieces and take revenge for this deep hatred. Seeing Shunlan's gaze, Chu Qian's expression changed slightly. In the next moment, she bit her lips and said in a resentful tone. It seemed that someone had touched on her sore spot, and her mood became somewhat unstable. Looks like Fei Ren was right. This girl is indeed a pitiful person. Seeing Chu Qian's expression and reaction, Shunlan also understood why Fei Ren said that Chu Qian was also a pitiful person. After all, from the high and mighty princess royal of the past to an ordinary person, and the death of all her relatives, this kind of blow was not something that an ordinary person could experience. I don't need other people's pity. Fei Ren, you can chat with this Shunlan. I'll go out for a walk. Perhaps sensing the trace of pity in Shunlan's eyes, Chu Qian also pursed her lips at this moment. Then, she turned around and left the bamboo house. She seemed to be somewhat disappointed and did not want to stay in this place any longer. Princess, seeing Chu Qian turn around and leave, Fei Ren also opened his mouth to persuade her. However, before he could finish his words, he saw the other party jogging all the way out of the bamboo house. Her figure instantly disappeared into the dense forest outside. What's wrong? Are you feeling sorry for her? Seeing this scene, Shunlan's face was also sly at this moment. Then, she grinned and said, Miss Shun, don't make fun of me. I was only asked by someone to temporarily take care of her for a while. In the future, I will eventually leave the Dacha dynasty. Moreover, this girl's temperament is unpredictable. Ordinary people can't stand it. In the face of Shunlan's teasing, Fei Ren also shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he was very helpless. Chu Qian was quite pretty. Moreover, she was the former princess royal. However, Fei Ren currently had more important things to do. He had not found the night demon fairy, who massacred the disciples of the Taizhong Gate. Moreover, he had not uncovered the mysteries left by his birth parents and the various secrets of the dragon sect. Naturally, he would not indulge in worldly desires and love. All right, I'm just joking. I know that you're not interested in this girl. Moreover, I'm not bad in terms of beauty, right? Hee hee. It was rare to see Fei Ren being defeated. At this moment, Shenlong also covered her mouth and chuckled. Her tone was full of playfulness. Cough, cough. Miss Shen, let's talk about business. In the face of Shenlan's teasing, Fei Ren was very clear in his heart that this was a question of death. No matter which side he said was better, he would be scolded. Immediately, he coughed a few times and then changed the topic. Prince Jin Shu Wen's Yuanli cultivation has already broken through to the first level of the martial master realm. Although the outside of the Forgotten Worry Valley is protected by the formation set up by the Divine Doctor, it is still dangerous. Lin Feng is now under Chu Wen's command and has become his #1 confidant. If I'm not wrong, this guy has always been thinking about the 5 poison scripture. Miss Shun, you saved my life back then, so I don't want to see you fall into danger. If Lin Feng and his group discover the existence of the Forgotten Worry Valley, you are likely to be in danger. Therefore, I want to advise you to leave the Dachu dynasty with us, as his voice fell. Fei Ren's face gradually turned serious. He did not want to see Shenlong in front of him suffer any harm, nor would he allow such a thing to happen. However, his current strength was limited, so he could only temporarily avoid the sharp edge and retreat in order to advance. Fei Ren, are you concerned about me? In the face of Fei Ren's persuasion, Shenlong did not immediately express her opinion. Instead, she asked meaningfully, Yes, just as Miss Shen said before, Lin Feng is not a good person. Nodding solemnly, Fei Ren also said from the bottom of his heart, That's enough. Fei Ren, thank you for your kindness, but I will not leave the Forgotten Worry Valley. I may leave in the future, but now is not the time. Raising her hand to interrupt Fei Ren's words, Shenlong also smiled faintly, as if she was very satisfied with Fei Ren's reaction. However, she did not plan to leave the valley with him. Miss Shun, seeing Shenlong decline, Fei Ren's face immediately froze, as if he was a little surprised. Now, there are still some special herbs in the Forgotten Worry Valley that have not fully grown, and the little cuties in my hands have not fully matured. If I leave the Forgotten Worry Valley now, all my previous efforts will be in vain. I'm sorry. However, Fei Ren, don't worry, Lin Feng, that ingrate can't hurt me, and even a martial master expert may not be my opponent. Don't underestimate my strength. Shenlan's red lips slightly parted as she looked at a small green worm slowly crawling out of her sleeve. Her tone revealed a rare gentleness. Chapter 258. Although she appreciated Fei Ren's kindness, Shenlong did not intend to leave the Forgotten Worry Valley. Okay, Miss Shun, in that case, we'll meet again. Seeing that Shenlong had made up her mind and did not intend to leave the Dachu dynasty with him, Fei Ren immediately cupped his fists and said, just as she said, there were still some things in the Forgotten Worry Valley that she could not leave for the time being. Moreover, Shenlong cultivated the 5 poison tome passed down in her family, and her mental strength was very strong. When the two first met, her mental strength had already reached the 4th level of the profound martial realm. Now that they met again, Shenlan's mental strength had greatly improved. Even if Chu, when subordinate, Lin Feng, really found the location of the Forgotten Worry Valley, he might not be a match for Shenlong. Moreover, there was a formation outside the Forgotten Worry Valley that was set up by the miraculous Dr. Shun Tianjun back then. It was difficult for ordinary martial artists to break it. Fei Ren, don't worry about my matters. Go and see that girl called Chu Qian. Compared to me, she should be more in need of care now. Didn't you say that you were entrusted by someone to escort her safely out of the Dacha dynasty? A man shouldn't go back on his words. Nodding, Shenlong pursed her lips and chuckled in a teasing tone. Although she lived in the valley all day and did not have many friends, her personality was definitely not considered lonely. Moreover, in Fei Ren's eyes, Shenlan was mischievous and mischievous most of the time. She didn't seem like a grandmaster who was immersed in alchemy and poison refinement at all. Instead, she seemed more like an ordinary peasant girl. Of course, Miss Shun, take care. Nodding solemnly, Fei Ren immediately turned around and left. At the same time, he rushed out of the bamboo house. Next, he was going to take Chu Qian out of the Dacha dynasty. Even he did not know how many dangers they would encounter along the way. Fei Ren, I hope what you said is true, that we will meet again in the future. As she watched Fei Ren's figure gradually disappear into the distance, Shenlan leaned against the door of the bamboo house. Her bright and dark eyes revealed an indescribable expression. Princess, why are you standing here alone? Not long after he left the bamboo house, Chu Qian's figure fell into Fei Ren's eyes. He saw that the other party was standing quietly under a tree. Her footsteps were stagnant, and her face was hesitant. It seemed that she did not dare to leave the bamboo house by herself. However, she did not want to go back the way she came because of her face. Fei Ren, it's you. Chu Qian turned around and saw Fei Ren. The hesitation and uneasiness on her face gradually disappeared. After interacting with Fei Ren for a period of time, she realized that she was becoming more and more dependent on him. Even she did not know why this change was happening. Although she did not want to admit it, this feeling was real. Princess, it's about time to leave this place. Don't worry along the way. I will escort you safely out of the Dacha dynasty and then to Dongling province. As for when we reach Dongling province, you can only take care of yourself alone. With a solemn expression, Fei Ren calmly said in the next moment. He still had his own things to do. Naturally, he could not follow Chu Qian forever. He was not some legendary knight, nor did he have the obligation to protect the princess. Everything he did so far was for the simple word of morality. To Dongling province, Chu Qian was stunned. Among the several countries and dynasties around the Dacha dynasty, only Dongling province had the strongest national strength. At the same time, the one who ruled Dongling province was a rank 8 sect, the Heavenly Sword sect. Naturally, she had heard of this news. Moreover, Dongling province and the Dacha dynasty had been rivals for many years. They were like fire and water. Even if Chu Wen was very resourceful and wanted to eliminate the Dacha dynasty by its roots, he would not be able to interfere in Dongling province. Clearly, Fei Ren had thought carefully before coming up with this plan. Fei Ren, after we reach Dongling province, you're going to leave? Yes. Do you really have to leave? Looking at the blushing Chu Qian in front of him, Fei Ren did not say anything and nodded again. All right, it's not a big deal for this princess to be alone. However, you've saved this princess after all. I still have to thank you on behalf of my father and brother. Let's go. Seeing that Fei Ren had made up his mind, Chu Qian did not say anything else. She pursed her lips and then walked out of the valley. However, a trace of disappointment flashed in her eyes. This girl is still as sharp-tongued as always. Did I speak too harshly? Forget it, I'll let her hate me for a while. If I don't make up my mind, I'll be in trouble. I can't be trapped by a trace of emotion now. I have more important things to do. Looking at Chu Qian's beautiful figure gradually leaving, Fei Ren's heart also surged with a trace of complexity. However, the next moment, it disappeared in an instant. At the same time, he let out a deep breath and followed closely behind. Clearly, he no longer hesitated. After leaving Forget Worry Valley with Chu Qian, Fei Ren did not stop at all. He rushed all the way to the border between the Dacha dynasty and Dongling province. Moreover, he flew in the air the entire time. After exhausting his origin energy, he found a hidden place to rest. Once the Yuan power in his body had fully recovered, he continued to fly in the air. Even though the nearest border between Azure Sun County and East Spirit Nation was tens of thousands of miles away, with Fei Ren rushing at full speed, the two of them quickly arrived at the border between the two nations. 3 days later, in a dense forest outside the border. Swoosh! Fei Ren's figure landed quickly. The next moment, he let out a heavy breath. At the same time, The origin energy wings on his back slowly dissipated. Chu Qian, who was beside him, stared at the panting Fei Ren with a worried expression. Fei Ren, do you want to rest for a while? Throughout the journey, she was carried in Fei Ren's arms and did not expend much origin energy. On the contrary, Fei Ren, who flew in the air all the way, was having a hard time. After all, the great flying earth burrowing technique was an authentic level 6 movement technique. With Fei Ren's current origin energy cultivation, using it frequently consumed a lot of origin energy. No need. Not far ahead, there is a small castle. The army of the Dacha dynasty is stationed there. If there are no accidents, as long as we avoid their eyes, we can successfully leave the Dacha dynasty and enter the territory of Dongling province. In response to Chu Qian's concern, Fei Ren waved his hand, indicating that he was fine. At the same time, he took out a level 3 elixir pill from the spirit ring on his finger and swallowed it. He began to recover the origin energy in his dantian. His eyes were filled with calmness. Okay, I'll listen to you. Seeing this scene, Chu Qian nodded her head. It seemed that after following Fei Ren for these few days, the other party had become her backbone. No matter what decision Fei Ren made, she would not refute. I hope it's just my imagination. Looking at Chu Qian in front of him, Fei Ren nodded his head without saying anything. At the same time, a trace of pondering flashed across his eyes. These few days, he had an ominous premonition in his heart. Moreover, as he and Chu Qian approached the border between the Dacha dynasty and Dongling province, this premonition grew stronger. Chapter 259. Princess, let's go. After more than 10 minutes, Fei Ren sensed that the origin energy in his body had almost recovered. In the next moment, he stood up again and rushed toward the border not far away. Chu Qian, who was beside him, saw this and hurriedly followed behind. As they continued to approach the border of Dongling province, a small castle gradually appeared in front of the two. The castle was not large, and it was completely made of pitch-black rocks. It was like a huge pitch-black turtle shell guarding the border. Other than the castle itself, there was a wide grassland dozens of meters around it. At the same time, there were many barricades and thorns, like a natural barrier. At the top of the castle, there were 2 sentry towers on the left and right. There were a few armored soldiers standing guard in each tower. The entire castle looked like an ordinary military castle. It was very simple and unadorned. Its defensive power could not be compared to the imperial city. Even without Fei Ren's help, Chu Qian could easily avoid these guards with her strength and sneak into the Dongling province border. With so few people, Fei Ren, it seems like we can easily go around them. Even if we charge out directly, these weak soldiers won't be a match for you and this princess. Looking into the distance, Chu Qian also spoke after noticing that the defense of this small castle was not strong. At the same time, she retracted her gaze and turned to Fei Ren beside her. Her beautiful face was brimming with confidence. Her origin energy cultivation was at the high 5th level of the Star Realm, similar to Fei Ren. There were very few soldiers stationed in the small castle opposite them, including the guards at the top of the castle and the hidden sentries around it. There were no more than 20 people. Moreover, the strongest among these soldiers was only at the 7th or 8th level of the Middle Union realm. Any High Star Realm warrior could easily beat them up, let alone Fei Ren and Chu Qian. They could easily wipe out the entire team. Princess, I don't know if you've noticed, but the soldiers in this military castle are all from the Steel Corps. They are not the Iron Corps under Chu Wen. Fei Ren nodded and said. However, his point of view was slightly different from the other parties. Although it was a simple glance, he discovered that the guards in the military castle were all from the Steel Corps. It seemed that because it was located at the border, the rebellion in the Imperial City hadn't affected this place for the time being. Therefore, the guards here didn't become Chu Wen's men. Now that you mention it, it does seem to be the case. Upon hearing this, Chu Qian was stunned. Then, she looked at the military fortress not far away. Princess, are we going to kill them directly? After speaking again, Fei Ren looked at Chu Qian with a questioning gaze. He didn't care whether they were hiding in the dark or attacking from the front. It all depended on Chu Qian's attitude. Forget it. These soldiers don't know anything. The rebellion in the imperial city has nothing to do with them. Let them live. In the face of Fei Ren's suggestion, Chu Qian hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. She seemed to be compassionate and did not want to kill in her life. All right, as you wish. Seeing this scene, Fei Ren grinned and didn't say anything, as if he had expected this. At the top of the castle, a cool breeze blew past. A few soldiers were chatting idly. The weapons in their hands were placed to the side. One of them had a faint impatience on his face. How unlucky to be assigned to such a godforsaken place. There's not even a shadow of a person. Yeah, I don't know when I'll be transferred back to the Imperial City. I really miss the happy days in the Imperial City. I drank good wine and meat every day. After the change of guard, I would go to the blue and white flower house to enjoy myself. I wouldn't change even if I was a deity. There's still about a month before the next change of guard. We can only endure. When the next batch of people comes, we can return to the Imperial City. In the face of the soldier's complaints, the young soldiers beside him also nodded. They seemed to agree with him. These people were all soldiers sent by the Steel Corps to guard the border. Although their cultivation base was not very high, each of them was equipped with weapons made of high quality, or the power was comparable to a spirit treasure. Moreover, they knew how to cooperate in battle and had a tacit understanding of each other. They could be considered a decent force. Although the combat strength of these Steel Corps soldiers was not very strong, it was more than enough to deal with some small troops and scouts sent by enemy countries to harass them. Moreover, with the extremely sturdy military castle behind them, it was easy to defend and difficult to attack. Ordinary martial artists would not necessarily dare to provoke them. Fisk, why is there still a month? I'm going crazy. Spitting out another mouthful of saliva. The young soldier who had complained earlier also had an unhappy expression on his face. At the same time, he stretched his body. What's wrong with you guys? At this moment, the young soldier also had a suspicious look on his face. He realized that his companions were all rooted to the spot, as if they had been bewitched. Their expressions were somewhat fearful, and their eyes were wide open as if they had seen something terrifying. You behind you. One of the soldiers opened his mouth wide, but in the next moment, his body fell to the ground. He did not even have time to scream. Blood stained his entire chest red. What? Seeing this scene, the young soldier's expression was also greatly shocked. He immediately felt a cold light on his back. However, before he could react, a sharp black dagger penetrated the left side of his chest, after which it instantly shattered his heart veins. At the same time, blood splattered in all directions. Bang! His body fell heavily to the ground. The young soldier's eyes were wide open. His breath completely dissipated. He died on the spot, as if he did not die in peace. Whoosh! The black dagger cut through the air. In just a few seconds, the soldiers who were guarding the 2 sentry towers also died. They fell to the ground and turned into cold corpses. A large amount of blood dyed half of the ground red. The scene was terrifying. A bunch of ants. You can only blame your bad luck. At the top of the castle, a strong wind whistled past. In the next moment, a blurry figure slowly appeared. He was masked and dressed in black. At this moment, he was holding a black dagger tightly in his hand. The aura on his body was also restrained and powerful. He had reached the level of the High Star Realm. He was already a Shadow Guard assassin under Chu Wan. Leader, the people inside have been dealt with. At this moment, another black-clothed man appeared in front of the Shadow Guard assassin and knelt on one knee. It seemed that the Shadow Guard assassin in front of him was not of a low level. He was one of the leaders, just like Xiahou Ba, whom Fei Ren had met in the Azure Sun County. Very good. Lord Crown Prince has ordered that the surviving member of the royal family will very likely escape to the Dongling province through the border between the 2 countries. Therefore, our Shadow Guard needs to intercept and behead him halfway. We cannot let the tiger return to the mountain. Glancing at the black-clothed man kneeling on one knee in front of him, the leader of the Shadow Guard sneered and said with a vicious tone, Chapter 260. Yes, leader, according to what I know, I heard that the surviving member of the royal family is a princess. She's very beautiful and can be called a peerless beauty. If this little girl is caught by our shadow squad, can you let us have some fun before we kill her? When he spoke again, a trace of lust flashed in the eyes of the black-clothed man. His tone was playful, as if he had long coveted the escaping Chu Qian. As long as we can catch her, it's up to you to deal with her however you want. Just don't go overboard. But you have to remember, don't leave her alive in the end. Sensing the intentions of the black-clothed man in front of him, the leader of the shadow squad nodded and tacitly agreed to the other party's idea. Yes, leader. Thinking that he would soon be able to make the former princess of the royal family kneel before him and beg for mercy, this black-clothed assassin's eyes also brightened. His tone was hurried. Although his face was covered by a layer of black mask, one could still see that he was unable to contain his excitement. By the way, has the crown prince arrived? As if he thought of something, the leader of the shadow squad spoke again. At the same time, he looked at the black-clothed man who was kneeling on one knee in front of him. Although the few of them were the shadow squad under Chu Wen, they were not directly under his command. Instead, they were led by someone else. This person was the current crown prince of King Jin, Chu Wen's son, Chu Zhaoge. Chu Zhaoge was a low-key person who had always been cautious when doing things. If he was not 100% confident, he would never make a move. Moreover, his talent and comprehension were also very good. His origin energy cultivation had long stepped into the high star realm level. Although Chu Zhaoge did not directly appear in the royal family's internal strife this time, he had secretly taken many actions, including commanding the many rebels of the Iron Armor Army to attack the imperial city, roping in the pavilion master of the pavilion of Prince Tong, Lin Feng, and so on. He had also done a lot for Chu Wen to ascend to the throne in the future. He's still on the way. If nothing unexpected happens, he'll be here in 15 minutes. Leader, even His Highness the Crown Prince has personally taken action this time. Even if that little b** TCH from the imperial family has an expert helping her, she will never be able to escape from the Dachu dynasty. The black-clothed man cupped his hands and bowed his head. There was a hint of cruelty and fanaticism in his tone, as if the crown prince Chu Zhaoge he spoke of was a god, a pillar of the gods, and no one in the world could rival him. Very good, let's go. With a wave of his hand, the leader of the Dark Shadow Guards and the black-clothed man in front of him also disappeared in a flash, as if they had never appeared. They hid in a dark corner of the military castle, quietly waiting for their prey to come. Originally, before Chu Qian escaped from the imperial city, Chu Wen had sent many experts to intercept and kill her. Unfortunately, Su Tianxing, Fei Ren, and the others appeared halfway. Not only was Commander Wei Wuyan forced to retreat, even Lu Ming, who was at the 9th level of the Star Realm, was beheaded by Fei Ren. This greatly shocked Chu Wen. Therefore, there was this interception operation at the border. Chu Wen's son, Chu Zhaoge, personally led a group of Dark Shadow Guards to the border. His goal was to completely capture and kill Chu Qian at the border between the Dachu dynasty and Dongling province, and not let her escape. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Below the castle, there was silence. Just as Fei Ren and Chu Qian were about to quietly escape, a few black figures suddenly flew out with murderous intent. There are also Dark Shadow Guards here? Looking at the group of black figures that suddenly appeared in front of him, Fei Ren was stunned. These black figures were all masked and dressed in black. Their cultivations were not weak, and they had all reached the high level of the Star Realm. Furthermore, each of them held an incomparably sharp black dagger in their hands. It was obvious that they were top-notch assassins who had undergone strict training, the Dark Shadow Guards under Chu Wen. Originally, Fei Ren thought that there wouldn't be any assassins from the Dark Shadow Guards in the military castle of the border, but he didn't expect them to be even more powerful than he had imagined. In just a few days, Chu Wen's influence had already spread to the border of the two countries. Damn it, it's these guys again. On the side, Chu Qian discovered the identity of the interceptors and immediately became furious. After all, these Dark Shadow Guards were Chu Wen's lackeys. They were the culprits and accomplices who had caused the deaths of her father, brother, and the others. Naturally, she couldn't remain calm. Target discovered there were about a dozen Dark Shadow Guards in front of them. The leader of the group was a 6th-level Star Realm Dark Shadow Guard leader. His eyes were cold and emotionless. At the same time, his body emitted a murderous aura that caused people to involuntarily feel fear. Unlike the Dark Shadow Guards who had intercepted Chu Qian and Fei Run in the Imperial City, the Dark Shadow Guards who had appeared near the border castle were slightly stronger. The weakest among them was a 3rd-level Star Realm Cultivator, while the strongest was a 6th-level Star Realm Origin Energy Cultivator. Kill! With a low shout, they didn't intend to give the two of them a chance to catch their breath. In the next moment, these Dark Shadow Guards swarmed forward and attacked Chu Qian and Fei Ren. Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, 2 Dark Shadow Guards flanked Fei Run from both sides. One of them shot out a black dagger towards Fei Ren's chest, as if he wanted to kill him in one strike. Compared to Chu Qian, Fei Ren not only looked ordinary, but his aura was also very ordinary. It was obvious that these Dark Shadow Guards had treated him as a soft persimmon that they could pinch at will. They planned to get rid of him first. This young master is not someone you bastards can touch. Seeing the other party attack, Fei Ren also sensed the Dark Shadow Guard's thoughts. He immediately circulated surging origin energy in his hands and blasted out 2 huge golden palms at the same time. The golden palms cut through the air and instantly smashed onto the bodies of 2 of the Dark Shadow Guards. Bang! Bang! Boom! The palm force exploded and origin energy swept out. In the blink of an eye, the 2 Dark Shadow Guards also fell to the ground. Blood splattered in all directions on the spot. They were completely dead, unable to resist at all. You traitors, this princess will use you as a sacrifice to the heavens. Seeing Fei Ren kill the 2 of them in such a domineering manner, Chu Qian's aura also shook. She took out the fairy sword from the spirit ring on her finger. In the next moment, the fairy sword in her hand slashed out diagonally. Immediately, a large amount of sword chi swept out and blasted towards the group of Dark Shadow Guards like a storm. Ah! 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 The sword chi storm wreaked havoc on the entire place. The group of Dark Shadow Guards, who were originally attacking Fei Run and Chu Qian, were also forced to retreat. A portion of them, who had a weaker cultivation, let out a series of miserable shrieks. Soon after, they were torn to pieces by the powerful sword chi storm, leaving behind a pool of blood on the spot. What? Seeing Fei Ren and Chu Qian's powerful battle strength, the leader of the Dark Shadow Guards was also greatly shocked. He immediately retreated with a trace of shock and anger on his face. According to the previous information, Chu Qian's origin energy cultivation was only at the 5th level of the Star Realm. Her strength was limited. However, now it seemed that they had seriously underestimated her. Not only had Chu Qian's strength increased by a lot, but the unknown Fei Run beside her was also not to be trifled with. His strength was terrifying. The information was wrong. Thinking of this, cold sweat dripped down the forehead of the leader of the Dark Shadow Guards. In just a few short breaths, more than half of the Dark Shadow Guards under him had died. About 7 or 8 people had died. It was obvious that with their strength and manpower, they were simply unable to stop Fei Run and Chu Qian. Chapter 261. These guys seem to be slightly stronger than the Dark Shadow Guards we encountered before. Chu Qian pushed back the Dark Shadow Guard encirclement with another sword strike. In the next moment, she landed in front of Fei Run. Her pretty face was flushed, and one could faintly see the fragrant sweat dripping down her cheeks. It's no big deal. Let's just kill our way out. I'll take care of that guy, who's at the 6th level Star Realm. Princess, let's attack together. Fei Ren only grinned at Chu Qian's reminder. Then, his figure shot out again. He actually went straight for the leader of the Dark Shadow Guards. His aura was like a rainbow. Arrogant. The leader of the Dark Shadow Guards, who was at the 6th level of the Star Realm, flew into a rage when he saw Fei Ren challenge him to a one-on-one duel. He leaned forward and charged at Fei Run as well, as if he was extremely displeased that Fei Run had underestimated him. After all, Fei Rin's cultivation was only at the 5th level of the Star Realm, while his cultivation was at the 6th level of the Star Realm. His cultivation was 1 level higher than Fei Rin's, so he had a significant advantage in terms of total origin energy. However, what the leader of the Dark Shadow Guards didn't expect was that Fei Rin wasn't an ordinary martial artist. Although his cultivation was only at the 5th level Star Realm, his total origin energy wasn't weaker than any 10th level Star Realm martial artist. He could be called a monster. Die. He narrowed his eyes. In the next moment, strands of golden origin energy surged out like a tide and gathered on Fei Rin's arms. In an instant, a blinding golden light flashed. What? The leader of the Dark Shadow Guards froze when he saw the large amount of origin energy fluctuations erupting from Fei Rin's body. He seemed to be intimidated by his opponent's aura. Bang! Crack! However, in the time it took for him to pause, the attack of the elemental energy had already arrived. The golden elemental energy was like a long spear, instantly piercing through the chest of the leader of the Dark Shadow Guards. Red and white objects mixed with boiling blood dripped onto the ground, and in the next moment, Fei Rin also took the opportunity to twist off his opponent's head. The leader's head fell to the ground in a single blow. The leader of the Dark Shadow Guards, who was at the 6th level Star Realm, was completely dead. He couldn't resist at all. So powerful. Who the hell is he? At this moment, seeing their leader being killed by Fei Rin in front of them, the surviving Dark Shadow Guards were also shocked. They were like birds startled by the twang of a bow, and even their bodies involuntarily retreated. Obviously, they were scared out of their wits by the powerful strength of the other party. Above the castle, a tall and skinny white figure stood quietly with a cold and calm expression. At this moment, his gaze was looking down at Fei Run and Chu Qian, who were surrounded by a group of assassins from the Dark Shadow Squad. The aura on his body was as deep as an abyss, and it was the son of Prince Jin, Chu Xiaoge. These guys are really useless. They can't even take care of 2 5th level Star Realm juniors. The Shadow Squad doesn't need useless trash. A cruel glint flashed across Chu Xiaoge's eyes. The next moment, he let out a cold snort. It seemed like he did not intend to take action. Instead, he allowed Fei Run and Chu Qian to fight with the remaining Dark Shadow Guards. Die! In the fierce battle, Fei Rin stepped on the wind and arrived in front of the 2 assassins from the Dark Shadow Squad like a ghost. At the same time, his fists punched out, instantly sending the 2 of them flying. Blood dyed the ground beneath their feet red. The 2 assassins from the Dark Shadow Squad were unable to resist at all. They vomited blood and fell to the ground on the spot. Their auras were completely gone, as if their hearts and veins had been shattered by Fei Rin's punch. They couldn't be any more dead. Just as Fei Rin's attacks were swift and fierce, and the more he fought, the more courageous he became. On the other side, Chu Qian also displayed her might. The fairy sword in her hand continuously killed several people, and her attacks were like rainbows. The Dark Shadow Squad, who had lost their leader's command, were like stray dogs. Whoosh! Chu Qian sheathed her sword. Looking at the corpses and rivers of blood on the ground, she let out a long sigh of relief. Then she took out a 3rd-grade pill from her spirit ring and swallowed it. It seemed that this battle had consumed a lot of her origin power. Although the 6th-level Star Realm leader of the Dark Shadow Squad had died at the hands of Fei Run, Chu Qian had still spent a lot of effort to deal with the other assassins from the Dark Shadow Squad. Good martial arts. How exciting! Seeing that all the enemies in front of him had died, Fei Rin secretly let out a sigh of relief. In the next moment, a strange and cold voice suddenly came from afar. The tone was playful. Who is it? As soon as the voice fell, Fei Rin's heart skipped a beat. He then looked up. He saw a tall figure standing above the castle. The tall figure was wearing a pure white martial robe and had a long sword at his waist. His entire body emitted a biting cold aura. Clearly, he had an extraordinary background. Moreover, he had been watching the battle for a long time. Even Fei Rin and Chu Qian didn't notice his existence. Chu Xiaoga. Facing Fei Ren's probing below, the corners of Chu Xiaoga's mouth curled up slightly. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared. In the next moment, he slowly landed not far away from the two. A trace of ruthlessness and arrogance flashed across his pale and delicate face. 10th level Star Realm. Another one. Sensing the extraordinary origin power fluctuations on Chu Xiaoga, Fei Ren's expression turned serious. This Chu Xiaoga in front of him was clearly a tough and ruthless character. Moreover, his strength wasn't much weaker than the previous general, Wei Wuyan. It's you, Chu Xiaoga. How can your cultivation be? Impossible. At this moment, seeing that the person in front of them was Chu Xiaoga, Chu Qian's pretty face also changed slightly. At the same time, she exclaimed in a low voice. She seemed to be in disbelief. One had to know that the former crown prince Chu Jiuxing was the leader of the four great geniuses in the imperial city. His origin power cultivation was only at the 7th level star realm, and he had just broken through. However, Chu Xiaoga in front of them had reached the 10th level star realm. This guy is pretending to be weak. Hearing this, Fei Ren was also deep in thought. The Chu Xiaoga in front of him was only 27 or 28 years old, but he had already stepped into the 10th level of the star realm at such a young age. It was obvious that he had obtained some kind of powerful opportunity in secret. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to break through so quickly. After all, even the current leaders of the 3-9 ranks of the great families were only at the 10th level of the star realm. Princess, times have changed. Sometimes reality is not as you imagine. Thanks to Father, I have successfully broken through to the 10th level of the star realm. In the future, I will also have the chance to step into the martial master realm and become a famous martial master realm expert. Glancing at Fei Ren and Chu Qian, Chu Xiaoga sneered, as if he was not in a hurry to make a move, as if the other party was already a turtle in a jar that could be easily killed. Oh, you didn't help those Dark Shadow squad earlier. It seems like you already have us. As expected of Prince Jean, your confidence is exactly the same as that old thief Chu Wen's. However, Lu Ming, who died at my hands earlier, also had the same idea as you. Fei Ren shrugged his shoulders. The corners of his mouth lifted as he opened his mouth and spoke in an indifferent manner. It was as though he could tell that the other party had purposely not lent a hand earlier. They were extremely confident in their own strength and had allowed these Dark Shadow guards to die in the hands of the two of them. A bunch of trash. If you die, then you die, brat. I know you're pretty strong, but I'm not that trash, Lu Ming. Today, this place will be your burial ground. With a cold smile, Chu Xiaoga's figure also disappeared in a flash. At the same time, he raised his hand and sent a heavy palm towards Fei Ren. In an instant, the origin energy surged, and an invisible and powerful aura spread out. When he had been watching the battle from the top of the castle, he had already figured out some things. Although they were both at the 5th level of the Star Realm, Fei Ren was obviously stronger than Chu Qian. Moreover, Fei Ren had killed Lu Ming before, so he was obviously much stronger than Chu Qian. Brat, let me see how capable you are. Chu Xiaoga's face was ruthless as strands of killing intent uncontrollably gushed out from his eyes. In an instant, he had arrived in front of Fei Ren. Chapter 262. Whoosh! Facing Chu Xiaoga's attack, Fei Ren did not dare to be careless. He pulled out the Azure Dragon halberd from his back and thrusted it forward at the same time. Clang! Boom! The fist force collided with the Azure Dragon halberd, causing a metallic sound to ring out. In an instant, boundless origin power exploded, creating a layer of shockwaves. What a powerful force! Fei Ren's expression changed slightly in the next moment when he felt waves of majestic power and intense pain coming from the area between his thumb and index finger. Although the Azure Dragon halberd in his hand was a Tier 5 spirit treasure, his opponent was already at the 10th level of the Star Realm. The difference in cultivation level couldn't be ignored. Let go! Fei Ren roared again, and in the next moment, his right hand trembled slightly. At the same time, the Azure Dragon halberd changed its attack, and with an upward slash, he forced his opponent's fist back. Then, his body fell backwards and at the same time, slowly dissipated the impact of the origin power. If I were to go all out, I wouldn't be afraid of this guy. Unfortunately, there's still that girl, Chu Qian, beside me. Looks like I can't continue fighting. I have to find a chance to escape. Holding the Azure Dragon halberd in front of him, Fei Ren secretly circulated his origin power until he regained feeling in his palm. The power of Chu Xiaoge's punch was undeniable. It was enough to instantly kill an ordinary martial artist below the 8th level of the Star Realm. In order to resist this punch, not only did Fei Ren take out his rank 5 spirit treasure, the Azure Dragon halberd, he also did not hold back. But even so, the remaining power of his opponent's fist still caused him to feel a sharp pain and numbness in his right hand. If not for the fact that Fei Ren had the Azure Dragon halberd, his martial cultivation was solid, and his physique was extraordinary, the result of this fight would not have been so simple. Other than Fei Ren, any other martial artist at the 8th level of the Star Realm would have died on the spot if they took Chu Xiaoge's punch head-on. Good boy, you do have some ability. Looks like you relied on this rank 5 spirit treasure to kill that trash Lu Ming. Retracting his fist, Chu Xiaoge's pale face also showed a trace of surprise, his eyes burning with greed. The green dragon halberd in Chu Xiaoge's hand was a genuine tier 5 spirit treasure. Even someone like Chu wouldn't coveted it, let alone a mere 10th level Star Realm cultivator like him. Thus, Chu Xiaoge's killing intent intensified. Apart from killing and robbing, Chu Xiaoge had another purpose for leading the Shadow Squad to intercept Fei Ren and Chu Qian, which was to make a contribution. Perhaps in the eyes of outsiders, he was the heir of the Jin Mansion and was about to become the new crown prince. But Chu Xiaoge knew very well that he was not Chu Wen's biological son, but an adopted son that the other party had picked up from somewhere. However, in order to keep a low profile, Chu Wen announced that Chu Xiaoge was his son and would inherit his title in the future. Father, if I can capture Chu Qian alive and bring her back to the capital, I will present this 5th grade spirit treasure to you. With such a great contribution, even if I'm not your biological son, you will definitely let me inherit the Dacha dynasty in the future. Thinking of this, Chu Xiaoge's tightly clenched fists trembled slightly, and the battle intent and killing intent in his eyes intensified. This time, he was well prepared. He would definitely not let Chu Qian and Fei Ren escape from the Dacha dynasty so easily. You can come and try. Strands of golden origin force surged out of his body. In the next moment, Fei Ren's arms were also enveloped by a scarlet golden light. At the same time, he pointed the green dragon halberd in his hand at Chu Xiaoge, who was not far away. Whether he fled or fought, he had to delay Chu Xiaoge in front of him and buy time for Chu Qian. If it was not for Chu Qian's safety, Fei Ren would not have to think too much. He would have directly used the flying heaven and earth escape technique to hide. Chu Xiaoge, who was only at the 10th level Star Realm, would definitely not be able to stop him. Princess, we can't be entangled with this guy here. If the pursuers catch up, it will be troublesome. Fei Ren was ready to unleash his aura. At the same time, he secretly transmitted his voice to Chu Qian. Swoosh! Hearing this, Chu Qian naturally understood. She immediately tapped her foot on the ground. At the same time, she activated her movement technique to the limit and rushed toward the other side of Dongling Province. Trying to run, seeing that Chu Qian had turned around to escape, Chu Xiaoge narrowed his eyes. In the next moment, he threw out the long sword at his waist. The long sword streaked across the sky, stirring up a whistling wind. It immediately shot toward Chu Qian's delicate body like a hidden weapon. It was extremely fast. Oh no! Sensing the sudden fatal danger from behind, Chu Qian's pretty face changed slightly. Her beautiful eyes were filled with shock. This longsword was Chu Xiaoge's natal spiritual treasure. Its rank was as high as the 4th grade. Moreover, his opponent's cultivation was at the 10th level Star Realm. Although this was a simple swing of the sword, its power was still extraordinary. Ordinary martial artists at the 8th level star realm would not be able to block it. Chu Qian was only at the 5th level star realm. It was even more impossible for her to block the sword. At the same time, it was also difficult for her to dodge it. Clang! Her beautiful eyes gradually widened. Just when Chu Qian thought that she was going to die for sure, a crisp sound of metal clashing rang out. In the next moment, a pure, white, formless formation suddenly appeared in the void around her. It actually blocked the powerful sword. What? Seeing that his attack was blocked, Chu Xiaoga's face also froze. He saw that his opponent had been enveloped by a formless formation. His previous attack only left ripples on the formation. It could not break through the formation's protection at all. Fortunately, I made it in time. Seeing that Chu Qian was safe and sound, Fei Run, who was on the other side, let out a long sigh of relief. Unknowingly, he had already tightly grasped a large yellow flag in his left hand. Impressively, it was a grade 5 spirit treasure that he had not used for a long time, the Universe 8 Trigrams flag. Another 5th grade spirit treasure. Where did this kid come from? At this moment, Chu Xiaoga also noticed that Fei Run had another 5th grade spirit treasure in his hand. Moreover, it was an even rarer formation spiritual treasure. He was immediately shocked. Then endless greed instantly surged onto his face. 2 5th grade spirit treasures. If I can kill this guy, these things will all be mine. Even if I let that girl Chu Qian escape, so what? An ant will always be an ant. How can a firefly compete with the bright moon? Kill. His eyes were burning. In the next moment, Chu Xiaoga's figure charged out again. He threw a heavy punch at Fei Ren's face. It was obvious that he had given up on chasing after his target. Great flying earth escaping technique. Seeing that the opponent was attacking again, Fei Ren did not have the intention to continue fighting. The green dragon halberd in his hand swept forward. At the same time, the Dantian's origin energy continued to surge out. In an instant, it turned into a pair of colorful origin energy wings. His entire body soared into the sky. He was not a fool. There was no need to fight to the death with Chu Xiaoga. As long as he could successfully escape to Dongling Province, he would be the winner of this battle. Moreover, there was Chu Qian, a burden by his side, which also limited Fei Ren's strength. Bang! Boom! The green dragon halberd stirred up a gust of wind. The majestic golden origin energy instantly condensed into a golden dragon. In an instant, it shattered Chu Xiaoga's attack. At the same time, it forced the opponent's figure to take a few steps back. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Fei Ren's figure immediately flew towards Chu Qian. Quick, come up. Fei Ren, extending his right hand in front of Chu Qian, Fei Ren did not wait for Chu Qian to react. In the next moment, his palm exerted force and instantly hugged Chu Qian. At the same time, his figure soared into the sky like a desert eagle. Huff! Huff! In the clouds high up in the sky, the wind whistled. Fei Ren's figure was extremely fast. He immediately flew toward the East Spirit Country, which was not far away. Within a few breaths, he had completely disappeared into the distant horizon. No one knew where he had gone. Chapter 263. Flying in the Air. Chu Xiaoga's expression froze when he saw Fei Ren cleverly dodge his attack and soar into the sky like an eagle. How could this kid master the ability to fly in the air? Could it be that his origin power cultivation has also stepped into the martial master realm? No, it should be some kind of special movement martial art, and it's of a high grade. Chu Xiaoga shook his head in the next moment. At the same time, he looked in the direction Fei Ren had left in the distant sky. There was no mistaking the pair of brilliant origin power wings that had been condensed behind Fei Ren's back. Fei Ren was only a high-star realm origin power cultivator, but he was able to control the origin power wings and fly in the air. Fei Ren must have cultivated a high-grade movement technique. After all, even King Jin, Chu Wan, couldn't fly for a long time before he broke through to the first level of the Martial Master Realm. He could only use his origin power to temporarily hover in the air. Damn it, I actually let them escape. If I return to the capital immediately, I'm afraid I won't be able to escape Father's punishment. Thinking of this, Chu Xiaoge was speechless. His face was as gloomy as stagnant water. Originally, he was full of confidence in this interception at the border. He had a group of powerful shadow squad assassins under him, and his origin power cultivation had reached the 10th level of the Star Realm. Chu Xiaoge expected that Chu Qian, who was only at the 5th level of the Star Realm, wouldn't be able to escape. However, Chu Xiaoge still greatly underestimated Fei Ren's strength. Not only did he have 2 5th-grade spirit treasures, but he also mastered the ability to fly in the air. He could attack and defend at will. If Chu Wan, who was at the 1st level of the Martial Master Realm, didn't make a move, Fei Ren would be almost invincible. Now that Father has the help of that mysterious expert, a mere princess of a fallen country won't be able to cause any trouble. Chu Xiaoge's furrowed brows slowly relaxed as he pondered in his heart. At present, Fei Ren had successfully escaped from the Dachid dynasty with Chu Qian and escaped into Dongling Province. Not only was Dongling Province the largest country in the surrounding area, but it also had an irreconcilable relationship with the Dachid dynasty. It was obvious that they would not easily allow him to enter and capture them. In addition, the Dachid dynasty had just gone through an internal strife, and its national strength was slightly weakened. It was even less of a match for Dongling Province. Therefore, Chu Xiaoge was very clear in his heart and did not take the risk to rush into Dongling Province to kill Fei Ren and Chu Qian. Swish! With a cold look in his eyes, Chu Xiaoge immediately withdrew his gaze and left the deserted castle. He seemed to have other intentions. Dongling Province, in an ancient forest near the border. Swoosh! Swish! A strong wind swept past, and in the next moment, 2 figures slowly landed on the ground. One of them had a pale face, and the pair of origin power wings behind him slowly faded away. It was Fei Ren, who had just escaped from the Dachid dynasty. The Great Flying Earth Burrowing technique was a grade 6 movement technique. Although Fei Ren's cultivation base was now at the 5th level of the Star Realm, it still consumed a lot of origin power to frequently use this movement technique. It should be safe. After exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Fei Ren thought to himself. After stepping into the border of Dongling Province, he continued to fly north for an hour. If there were no accidents, he should be out of danger. After all, Chu Xiaoge did not dare to enter the hinterland of Dongling Province. The other party's identity was special, and the 2 countries were hostile to each other. Fei Ren, what's wrong? Are you all right? Seeing that Fei Ren's face did not look too good, Chu Qian, who was beside him, also asked with concern. Fei Ren was the main reason why she was able to escape from danger. Although Fei Ren had taken advantage of her several times during their escape, Chu Qian's heart gradually relaxed. After all, if it wasn't for Fei Ren, she would have died in the rebellion in the Imperial City. Compared to other unfamiliar men, Chu Qian was not so resistant to physical contact with Fei Ren. She could clearly see that Fei Ren's eyes were very clear and did not have any lust. He was not some pervert with bad intentions. To be honest, it's not too good. Facing Chu Qian's concern, Fei Ren showed a rare bitter smile. Although he had escaped from Chu Xiaoge's pursuit, there were some internal injuries left in his body. His opponent's cultivation level was still too much for him. Even with the double support of the Green Dragon Halberd and the Dharma Golden Arm, the gap in strength was not widened. After all, Chu Xiaoge was Chu Wen's adopted son, the heir on the surface. Not only was his talent and strength not weaker than the 4 geniuses of the Imperial City, but he was even better. Even the sharp weapon in his hand was a good tier 4 spirit treasure. Therefore, it was difficult for Fei Ren to easily crush his opponent like how he dealt with ordinary warriors. If he used all his trump cards, he only had a 50% chance of killing Chu Xiaoge. At the same time, he would be heavily injured and both sides would be injured. You're injured? It can't be. But you don't have any injuries on your body? Hearing this, Chu Qian's beautiful eyes immediately widened. Then, she looked up and down at Fei Ren in front of her and seemed to be a little surprised. After all, the Fei Ren in front of her had used too much Yuanli and was a little out of breath. There were no injuries on his body, not even a basic scratch. "Princess, don't look at me. These are internal injuries. That Chu Xiaoge is indeed a character. His Yuanli has inner strength hidden in it. If not for the green dragon halberd absorbing most of the Yuanli, the injuries in my body might have been more serious." Glancing at Chu Qian, Fei Ren shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Next, I need to find a remote and quiet place to recuperate for a while. I need to use less Yuanli for the time being. Otherwise, once the injuries erupt, it will affect the foundation of my cultivation." This was not him being an alarmist. Fei Ren was very clear about the injuries in his body. If not for his solid Yuanli cultivation, which allowed him to suppress the Yuanli inner strength that invaded his body, his meridians and dantian would have suffered quite a bit of damage. "Okay, there's a small village not far ahead. I'll bring you there to recuperate. You've been taking care of me before. Now, let this princess take care of you. You're welcome." Her beautiful eyes stared intently at Fei Ren in front of her. She seemed to have discovered that the other party was not lying to her. Immediately, Chu Qian patted her chest and smiled. How did you know that there's a small village in front?" Seeing that Chu Qian wanted to take care of him, Fei Ren was stunned. Then, he laughed dryly and asked. To be honest, he did not dare to believe that Chu Qian, the spoiled and arrogant princess, would lower herself to take care of others. However, since Chu Qian had said so, he could only treat it as a smile from the other party and accept it with a smile. "I saw it. When I was flying in the sky, I saw a small village not far ahead. There was a broken wooden sign at the entrance of the village. There were some words on it. It seemed to be called something like Ox Village. Fei Ren, this princess's observation skills are top-notch. Don't underestimate me." Pursing her lips, Chu Qian smiled and said. Her tone was filled with a trace of satisfaction. It seemed that she had finally escaped danger and was in a good mood. Chapter 264. Then let's go and take a look. Seeing Chu Qian's confident appearance, Fei Ren immediately nodded and did not say anything else. If it was as she said, and there was a small village ahead, it would be perfect. After all, his strength had not recovered to its peak state. At the same time, he had hidden injuries in his body and urgently needed to find a remote and quiet place to recuperate. The two of them passed through the forest. After rushing for a few minutes, a simple and quiet village gradually appeared in front of Fei Ren and Chu Qian. They could see wisps of smoke rising slowly from the village from afar. The sound of chickens and dogs in the village could be heard. At the same time, there was a dilapidated wooden sign erected at the entrance of the village. It was very peaceful and peaceful. There is indeed a small village. "Princess, your eyesight is not bad." Looking at the simple and peaceful village in front of him, Fei Ren immediately grinned. The hidden injuries in his body were not particularly serious. With his deep and solid cultivation base and the self-healing power of the Immortal refining cauldron, he could completely recover in half a month at most. The only trouble he was worried about was that martial art practitioners would come looking for him. The small village called Ox Village in front of him was not big. The entire village was located in a flat mountain range. It was surrounded by lush forests. There seemed to be only about 1,000 families in the village. It was very suitable for recuperating and living in seclusion. After all, no martial art practitioners would be interested in such a remote place. There are also no cultivation resources. Of course, let's go. I will bring you in to ask around. It should not be difficult to find a remote and quiet place for you to recuperate. Pursing her lips and smiling, Chu Qian forcefully pulled Fei Ren in the next moment. At the same time, they walked toward Ox Village not far away. "Big brother, big sister, who are you?" The two of them had just arrived at the entrance of the Ox Village when they were greeted by a little girl who was about 6 or 7 years old. The little girl was wearing coarse cotton clothes and a pair of pink tiger-headed shoes. She had a soft and tender little face that was like a goose egg. A smear of blush appeared on both sides of her cheeks, making her look extremely cute. Little sister, we are looking at the little girl who suddenly appeared in front of him. Faerun also coughed dryly. However, just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by Chu Qian. Little girl, tell me, who is your village chief? Also, where is he? Take us there. We have something to talk to you about. Chu Qian's beautiful eyes stared intently at the little girl in front of her as she spoke in a serious tone. Wah. Faced with Chu Qian's question, the little girl in front of her also pursed her lips. In the next moment, her nose twitched, and she actually cried on the spot. Her pair of small hands kept wiping her eyes, as if she was frightened by the other party's aura. Princess, you can't talk to a child like that. You have to be gentler. If those ignorant villagers see this, don't even talk about finding a place to stay for the night. I'm afraid that we will be chased out by these villagers in a while. Seeing the little girl cry on the spot, Faerun was also somewhat helpless and immediately said with a bitter smile, How could this be? Looking at the crying little girl in front of her, Chu Qian's pretty face turned slightly red. She seemed to feel a little embarrassed. After all, she had lived in the princess residence in the imperial city for many years. How would she know the ways of the world and how to interact with people? She had always spoken like this to her servants. Little girl, big brother is not a bad person. I just want to ask for directions. At the same time, I want to stay in your village for a period of time. Look, what is this? Restraining his expression, Faerun immediately squatted down. At the same time, the origin energy in his right palm surged and instantly condensed into a colorful cloud. The colorful cloud floated in the air with a soft and lively appearance. It immediately attracted the little girl's attention, and the crying stopped abruptly. Rainbow, rainbow, rubbing her somewhat red and swollen eyes. The little girl first timidly glanced at Chu Qian behind Faerun, then retracted her gaze and said weakly with her mouth slightly opened, you guessed half of it right. However, this is not a rainbow, but a rainbow candy. With a thought, the colorful cloud in Faerun's right palm changed again. It actually turned into a colorful lollipop. The lollipop was as big as a fist. The colorful lollipop was very attractive. It was obvious that it was very attractive to this little girl who was only 6 or 7 years old. Rainbow candy. Seeing a rainbow lollipop appear in Faerun's hand out of thin air as if he was performing magic, the little girl's eyes widened in the next moment. At the same time, her mouth opened slightly, and her eyes seemed to be filled with desire. Little girl, we are not bad people. This big sister actually did not have any malicious intentions. This rainbow candy is a gift from Big Brother to you. Faerun handed the rainbow candy in his hand to the little girl, and the next moment, he also smiled faintly. Thank you, Big Brother. You are a good person. She hurriedly reached out and grabbed the rainbow candy handed over by Faerun. The little girl also violently sniffed a mouthful of snot, then grinned. Her red cheeks instantly bloomed, and it was obvious that she had let down the guard in her heart. I didn't expect you to be so good at coaxing children. It's a pity that you don't become a stay-at-home dad. Seeing that the little girl in front of him was easily bought over by Faerun with a rainbow candy, Chu Qian, who was beside him, crossed her jade-like hands in front of her chest, then curled her lips. She seemed to be a little surprised, and the image she had of Faerun in her heart in the past had changed. Of course, when I have a son in the future, he will definitely pester me every day. There's no other way. In the face of Chu Qian's ridicule, Faerun did not hold back and immediately said loudly, TSK, maybe you won't even be able to marry a wife in the future, let alone a son. With a soft snort, Chu Qian opened her mouth again. In terms of attacking Faerun's mentality, she was never tired of it. In any case, my talent and strength are top-notch, and my martial arts cultivation is profound. Not to mention a wife. Even marrying a princess in the future will not be a problem. I can just give birth to a bunch of children, and maybe they will even throw themselves at me. The corner of his mouth rose, and the expression on Fei Rin's face became more and more proud, until he saw Chu Qian's expression become more and more serious. He immediately reacted and coughed dryly. "Princess, actually, I was just joking. Get lost, rogue." After glaring at Fei Rin in annoyance, Chu Qian ignored Fei Rin behind her and walked into the village at the same time. "Big brother, why is big sister angry?" Seeing Chu Qian leave angrily, the little girl next to her also had a rainbow candy in her mouth. She looked at Fei Rin in front of her with a puzzled expression, as if she could not understand. "Little girl, this big sister's temper is a bit strange. Be obedient and go home early." Reaching out his hand to touch the little girl's head, Fei Rin also laughed dryly. Obviously, he did not know how to explain the profound problem of having children between men and women since ancient times. The next moment, he immediately flew and caught up with Chu Qian, who had stepped into the village. "Princess, don't be angry. I may have to recuperate and live in seclusion in this village for a period of time, before my strength recovers to its peak. If anything happens, I'll have to trouble you to protect me." Leaping to Chu Qian's side, Fei Rin laughed dryly, and his face was full of helplessness. He did not expect the other party to take care of him personally. He only hoped that Chu Qian could act as a guard while he was recuperating. After all, the internal injuries in his body had not been healed. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Fei Rin was not willing to use his origin power, as it would only worsen the injuries in his body. Chapter 265. What does your life or death have to do with me? Moreover, why would any martial artist come to this kind of broken place? Turning her head to look at Fei Rin beside her, Chu Qian immediately snorted coldly. "Who are you people?" At this time, a few villagers holding hoes appeared not far away. There were both men and women among these villagers. Most of them were wearing coarse hemp clothes and were dressed simply. Among them, there were a few women holding naughty children who did not know about the world. Everyone's expression was different. "Everyone, please do not be nervous. The two of us are merchants from other places, and we plan to temporarily stay in Ox Village for a period of time." When he saw the gazes that the villagers shot towards him, Fei Rin immediately cupped his hands together and spoke in a clear voice. The villagers in front of him were all ordinary people. Most of them were mortals. Among the crowd, there were only one or two young villagers with strong physiques. Their bodies faintly emitted yuan power waves, but the yuan power waves were very weak. They were only at the refinement stage. Refinement stage martial artists were no different from ordinary people in Fei Rin's eyes. They were not worth mentioning. Moreover, he did not want to have a conflict with these Ox Village villagers because it was meaningless. Both sides were not on the same level. If they really want to fight, even if Fei Rin did not use yuan power and only relied on the strength of his body, these Ox Village villagers would not be his opponent even if they swarmed him with weapons. Merchants. Hearing this, the villagers also looked at each other. Among them, a middle-aged, brawny man's face revealed a trace of vigilance. "Little brother, the lady beside you is not an ordinary person, no matter her dress or temperament. Moreover, we are all martial artists. There is an obvious yuan power aura on your bodies. That's right, the two of us are indeed martial artists. This time, we came to Ox Village because we have no other choice. I hope that everyone can give us some face and give us a remote and quiet place to temporarily stay for the two of us. As for money, it is not a problem." Seeing that his fabricated identity was exposed, Fei Rin immediately stopped hiding and opened his mouth to speak. Although money and jewels were not valuable in the world of martial artists and were not as useful as yuan stones, to the villagers in front of him, money and jewels were priceless. As the saying goes, when there is a great reward, there will be brave men. Martial artist. The two of them are really warriors. Looks like that little girl, Little Blossom, wasn't lying earlier. I didn't expect that a martial artist would come to a poor place like our Ox Village to take care of us. It's really rare to see such a thing in decades. As soon as he finished speaking, the villagers immediately began to discuss spiritedly. They exclaimed in surprise, clearly feeling very surprised. After all, this place was located at the border of Dongling Province. It was a land of barren hills and turbulent rivers. Within a radius of several hundred miles, there was only one small town that could be considered prosperous. The rest of the area was scattered with various large and small villages. Some of the villages had less than 100 people, and there were even fewer martial artists. In this ox village with a population of less than 2,000 people, a martial artist at the 6th level of the body refinement stage was able to dominate the village and, at the same time, become the protective umbrella of the village. Fei Run, why waste your breath on these villagers? If money doesn't work, then let's use force. In my opinion, the strongest people in this village are only a few body refinement realm martial artists. How could they be a match for the two of us? Even if you become the village king, they won't be able to stop you. Facing the discussions of the villagers in front of her, Chu Qian immediately frowned, as if she was a little impatient. At the same time, she looked at Fei Ren. Princess, these people are just ordinary citizens. If we kill them, then wouldn't we be no different from demons and devils? Seeing that Chu Qian's princess temper had risen again, Fei Ren immediately shook his head and then secretly transmitted his voice. Grandfather, it's that big brother who said he was looking for you. Just as Fei Ren and the group of villagers in front of him were confronting each other, a slightly tender and clear voice came from afar. In the next moment, the little girl who appeared at the entrance of the village earlier was skipping towards the direction of the two of them. She had a rainbow lollipop in her mouth, and her face was cheerful. At the same time, she was holding the hand of a gray-clothed old man with white hair who was close to his 80s. Village chief, at the side, seeing the gray-clothed old man appear, the surrounding villagers all opened their mouths to greet him. Their tone was respectful, as if the old man's position in Ox Village was not low. 8th level of the body refinement stage? Looks like this old man is the village chief of Ox Village. Sensing that the aura of the gray-clothed old man beside the little girl was stable and contained yuan power fluctuations in his body, Fei Ren immediately nodded his head secretly. The old man was also a martial artist in his early years. However, he was quite old now, and his talent and resources were limited. Therefore, his yuan power cultivation was only at the 8th level of the body refinement stage. Although the gray-clothed old man's cultivation was only at the 8th level of the body refinement stage, it was more than enough in Ox Village. It was enough to protect this village from the threats of other villages and wild beasts in the forest. As for other martial artists or magical beasts, it was hard to say. This old man is the village chief of Ox Village. May I know why the two of you have come to Ox Village? Sizing up Fei Run and Chu Qian, the gray-clothed old man's heart trembled in the next moment. After all, the yuan power aura of the two people in front of him was far superior to his. Obviously, they were martial artists from the outside world. They were powerful, and a small village like Ox Village could not afford to offend them. My name is Fei Run, village chief. The two of us only intend to stay in the village for a period of time. After that, we will leave. We have no ill intentions. Moreover, we can pay a certain amount of money as compensation. Once again cupping his hands, Fei Run went straight to the point. Grandpa, that big brother is a very nice person. Not only can he perform magic tricks, he even gave Xiao Hua sweets to eat. Although the big sister beside him looks a little fierce, Xiao Hua believes that they are not bad people. Seeing that the surrounding atmosphere was a little stiff, the little girl by the side also stretched out her hand and tugged at the corner of the gray-clothed old man's clothes. Her words revealed a trace of tactfulness. It seemed that she had been bought over by Fei Ren's rainbow lollipop, and her impression of him had greatly increased. This little girl is really silly. She actually doesn't even know about yuan power. Beside them, hearing that the little girl had treated Fei Ren's yuan power as a magic trick, Chu Qian's pretty face was slightly stunned. She then pursed her lips and secretly thought to herself. She seemed to be somewhat speechless. Child, you only care about eating. You were bought over by a little benefit. Seeing that the little girl had put in a good word for Fei Run and the rest, the gray-clothed old man helplessly smiled, after which he extended his hand and rubbed the little girl's obedient head. His eyes were filled with a doting expression. In the next moment, he once again looked at Fei Run and Chu Qian and opened his mouth to speak. Ox Village has always been hospitable. Now that the two of you have come from afar, it just so happens that I have a few empty houses. Although they are a little shabby, they are still considered clean and tidy. If the two of you don't mind, you can temporarily stay there. As for money, there is no need for that. In that case, thank you, village chief. Seeing that the problem of accommodation was settled so easily, Fei Ren did not stand on ceremony and smiled faintly. Chapter 266. Not long after, Fei Ren and the rest arrived at the gray-clothed elder's house. The gray-clothed elder's residence was a small courtyard. Other than the main house in the middle, there were only 2 or 3 side rooms. Pushing open the door, one could see that although the interior was very clean and tidy, it was slightly shabby. There was no furniture or decorations, just a simple straw hut. Is there only this kind of house? Frowning slightly, Chu Qian was a little disappointed. In the past, she was the eldest princess of the Dacha dynasty. She even had her own luxurious princess residence. Who would have thought that one day she would have to live in such a straw hut? Princess, it's good enough to have a place to live. It's better than living in the open. This place is quite clean. He secretly transmitted his voice to Chu Qian. The next moment, Fei Ren squatted down and patted the head of the little girl beside him. Little girl, your name is Little Blossom? Yes. Nodding her head, the little girl, named Little Blossom, looked very sensible. So obedient. This is your reward. Go and play. Taking out a low-grade primordial stone from the spirit ring on his finger, Fei Ren handed it to Little Blossom and smiled. Wow, what a beautiful stone. Reaching out to grab the low-grade primordial stone, Little Blossom's eyes lit up with surprise. Although Little Blossom was just an ordinary little girl who did not cultivate primordial power and did not know the value of a low-grade primordial stone, a child of this age was naturally curious about shiny and glowing stones. Naturally, she was instantly attracted to it. Low-grade primordial stone. Sir, Little Blossom is just a child. How can you? Although Little Blossom did not know the value of the stone, the gray-clothed elder's eyes trembled. He was very clear about the value of a low-grade primordial stone. It was enough to support him to break through to the 9th level of the body refinement stage. Yet, Fei Ren was treating a low-grade primordial stone as a toy to please a child. If some body refinement stage practitioners saw this scene, they would be so shocked that their teeth would drop. It's a small matter. Village chief, you don't have to be so polite. Fei Ren waved his hand when he saw the shock on the gray-clothed old man's face. The last time he killed the Long father and son duo, he had also plundered 10 to 20,000 lower-grade yuan stones and a portion of monster cores from their spirit rings. Therefore, he did not lack these lower-grade yuan stones. These two people should be the geniuses of some big family in the outside world. Seeing this scene, the gray-clothed old man sighed inwardly. When he was young, he had been fortunate enough to go to a certain important city in Dongling province. There, he had met many young people from aristocratic families and sections. Among them, there was no lack of genius warriors. In the eyes of these genius martial artists, not to mention the body refinement realm, even a middle unity realm was not worth mentioning like ants. Obviously, the gray-robed old man had also classified Fei Run and Chu Qian in front of him as this kind of genius martial artists. After all, to casually throw out low-grade primordial stones was not something an ordinary martial artist could do. At the same time, in the depths of the palace of the Dachu dynasty, Chuan, just give up. This consort will not submit to you. You bastard who killed your brother and stole the throne. A low shout suddenly sounded out. In the next moment, a beautiful middle-aged woman with an exquisite and cold face in palace attire flicked her sleeves and turned around. At this moment, she was looking at Chu Wan with a face full of resentment. Her beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent, as if the other party was an irreconcilable enemy who wanted to kill her. Chu Tianyang is already dead. No matter how much you scold me, you can't change this fact. Looking at the middle-aged woman who was furious and unable to calm down, Chu Wen's eyes were cold and calm, as if he was unmoved. Chu Wen, why did you do this? Seeing Chu Wen's calm and indifferent expression, the middle-aged woman in palace attire was even more furious. She immediately took a step forward and shouted at the top of her lungs again. Even her voice was faintly trembling. Why? Ha ha! Qingwen, back then, if it wasn't for that damned old man royal father secretly giving the order, you would be this king's woman today. What virtue did Chu Tianyang have? He took everything from me, including you, so he deserves to die? Facing the middle-aged woman's question, Chu Wen laughed out loud. Then, a trace of ruthlessness appeared on his pale face as he coldly said. The middle-aged woman in palace attire in front of him was called Lu Qingwen. She came from the famous Lu family of the Dachu dynasty. She came from the same clan as the genius girl Lu Xiao of the Alchemist Association. At the same time, she was also Chu Tianyang's wife, the former empress of the Great Chu. About 30 years ago, Lu Qingwen, Chu Wen, and Chu Tianyang were childhood friends. The three of them would often go out to experience the world together, laughing and having fun. Back then, the relationship between Chu Tianyang and Chu Wen was not as tense as it was now, where they were hostile towards each other. However, things didn't go as he wished. Ever since the mediocre Chu Tianyang became the first successor to the throne, Chu Wen's heart gradually began to distort. The reason he was willing to work for Chu Tianyang was only to take care of Lu Qingwen's feelings and vaguely accumulate strength at the same time. Chu Wen, why didn't I see that you were this kind of person before? Lu Qingwen bit her lips as her beautiful eyes widened. She couldn't believe that the Chu Wen she knew in the past would become like this today. Selfish, crazy, cruel, and heartless. And the huge change in Chu Wen in front of her was actually related to her. Qingwen, sooner or later, you'll accept me. I, Chu Wen, know in my heart that a forcibly picked melon is not sweet. In the future, stay in this palace obediently. This king will send someone to take good care of you. Laughing coldly again, Chu Wen flicked his sleeves and left in the next moment, leaving Lu Qingwen in a daze. Imperial Palace. In a large hall, father, this child is useless. I let that girl, Chu Qian, escape. Chu Chaoga knelt on one knee with a gloomy expression. Even his tone was filled with fear and trepidation. Clearly, he knew that he couldn't escape the blame for letting Chu Qian and Fei Ren escape. What? Hearing this, Chu Wen narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Chaoga, I remember that your cultivation base has already broken through to the 10th level of the Star Realm. You can't even deal with a little girl who is only at the 5th level of the Star Realm. This child deserves to die. Chu Qian was accompanied by a brat called Fei Ren. This person's strength is not ordinary. He is only at the 5th level of the Star Realm, but he can fly. This child was careless and let the two of them escape. Now, they have escaped into Dongling Province. Speaking to this point, Chu Chaoga lowered his head again. A mere 5th level of the Star Realm has the ability to fly? Hearing this, Chu Wen's expression was slightly doubtful. Everyone knew that only when one's cultivation base reached the Martial Master Realm could one completely master the ability to fly. Chu Wen, you don't have to blame your adopted son. If I'm not wrong, this person should have mastered some kind of high-level movement martial art. Moreover, its grade is no lower than the 6th grade. As for that little girl, she can't do anything. As long as this old man helps, it won't be difficult for the Dachu dynasty to rise in the future. Even the 8th grade sect of Dongling Province, the Heavenly Sword sect, won't be able to do anything to you. At this moment, a strange black figure suddenly appeared behind Chu Wen. It was a black-clothed old man holding a snake-headed walking stick. His old face was full of wrinkles, and his skinny palms were like skin and bones. At this moment, he was looking at Chu Chaoga, who was kneeling beside him with narrowed eyes. His tone was filled with arrogance. Elder Yang, seeing the black-clothed old man appear, Chu hurriedly moved to the side and cupped his hands respectfully. It seemed that the black-clothed old man in front of him had a high status and didn't dare to be negligent. As for Chu Chaoga, who was kneeling in front of the hall, he also kowtowed heavily and spoke respectfully. Chapter 267. Elder Yang, with your words, I'm relieved. Hearing this, Chu nodded again. His tone was respectful, and he did not dare to refute. The other party was a powerful martial arts expert, and he did not belong to any of the surrounding countries. Instead, he came from a vast southeastern region of the outside world. The reason why he was able to break through to the first level of the martial master realm and defeat Chu Tianyang to seize the throne was largely due to the help of the old man in black. Although he did not know how strong the old man in black was, Chu knew in his heart that the old man's yuanli cultivation had far exceeded the level of the martial master realm. Therefore, he did not dare to neglect the old man in black's words and mostly obeyed. Where did this mysterious expert beside Father come from? He doesn't even put the 8th grade sect, the Heavenly Sword sect, in his eyes. That's the #1 sect in Dongling province. In the hall, seeing Chu's respectful appearance towards the old man in black, Chu Zhaoga, who was kneeling on the ground, was also shocked. He only knew that the mysterious old man in black was called Elder Yang, and he was one of the many martial arts experts that his adoptive father had roped in. However, compared to other martial arts experts, the old man in black in front of him had an incomparably noble status, and he was even above Chu Wen. Back then, the entire Jin Mansion was a man of his word, and even Chu Wen had to give him some face. Chu Wen, now that you have become the emperor, it's time to redeem my promise. Curling his lips, the old man in black called Elder Yang spoke again. At the same time, his pair of turbid yellow eyes looked at Chu Wen, and there was a hint of lust in them. Of course, Elder Yang, please rest assured. Sensing the gaze of the old man in black, Chu Wen's heart trembled, and then he nodded slightly. Even though the old man's strength in the martial Dao was extremely formidable, he was an old lecher who didn't care about anything. Moreover, he had a vile character and specialized in cultivating a unique yin-yang fusion devil technique. Back then, for the sake of roping in the black-clothed old man, Chu had not only secretly searched for all sorts of beauties and sent them to please the old man and used them as cultivation furnaces, he didn't even let his own wife off. This old fellow's appetite is getting bigger and bigger recently. I hope he doesn't set his sights on Qingwen. Thinking of this, Chu also felt a trace of unease in his heart. No matter how many women the other party defiled, even if it was the princess consort of his Jin mansion, he would not care. Only Lu Qingwen, the former empress of Chu, was his exclusive property. Ox Village, Dongling province. Unknowingly, 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. During this period of recuperation, the internal injuries in Fei Ren's body gradually improved, and he was close to a full recovery. It's finally recovered. In a courtyard, Fei Ren was seen waving his fists and legs. In the next moment, he blasted his palm forward through the air. A powerful golden palm force also burst forth, causing the air in the entire courtyard to tremble slightly, emitting a burst of air-piercing sounds. Moreover, other than the recovery of his injuries, Fei Ren's yuan power cultivation had also improved. The yuan power in his body was close to overflowing, and he was only one step away from breaking through. This can be considered a blessing in disguise for this young master. Sensing the abundant yuan power in his dantian, Fei Ren's handsome face could not help but reveal a trace of gratification. Although he had just broken through to the 5th level of the Star Realm not long ago, he had experienced countless life and death battles before. While escaping, he had also taken Chu Zhaoga's all-out attack head-on. Under the stimulation of various life and death battles, the improvement of one's origin energy cultivation was naturally extremely swift. After all, besides cultivating cultivation techniques, battles were also another shortcut to increasing a martial artist's strength. Moreover, martial artists that were able to break through in battle were all top geniuses with extraordinary comprehension ability. At this moment, Fei Ren was very clear in his heart that he could break through again and step into the 6th level of the Star Realm in 7 or 8 days at most. Your strength has actually increased again. Fei Ren, are you a monster? At this moment, Chu Qian also pushed open the door and coincidentally saw Fei Ren cultivating in the courtyard. She immediately exclaimed softly when she sensed the Yuan power aura on his body increasing day by day. A few months ago, his Yuan power cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Star Realm. However, after a few months, Fei Ren's Yuan power cultivation had skyrocketed, and he had broken through several levels in succession. Now, Fei Ren was only 1 step away from the 6th level of the Star Realm. In terms of cultivation, he was about to surpass her, the former princess of the imperial family. How could Chu Qian not be surprised? I was just lucky. There's still some time before I break through. When he saw Chu Qian appear, Fei Ren also withdrew his fist and stood straight. Then, he exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi and smiled faintly. Princess, you've changed quite a lot. I'm also looking at you in a new light. During these days of living in Ox Village, other than the changes in his own cultivation, he had also noticed some subtle changes in Chu Qian. Perhaps it was because trials and tribulations made people grow. Although the Chu Qian in front of him still had a bit of a princess temperament, she was much more restrained compared to before. She had also become stronger and more tolerant. She was not as impulsive and irritable as before, and would throw a little tantrum at the slightest provocation. Of course, don't you know who this princess is? In the face of Fei Ren's praise, Chu Qian also snorted softly. At the same time, her red lips pouted slightly. Although she did not say anything on the surface, a hint of joy faintly appeared in her beautiful eyes. She seemed to enjoy the feeling of being admired. Woo-woo, big baddie. At this moment, a child's cry suddenly came from outside the house. In the next moment, a dirty-faced Xiao Hua hurriedly ran into the courtyard. At this moment, her eyes were red and blurry with tears. At the same time, there were some abrasions on the back of her petite hand. She seemed to have been bullied by someone. Xiao Hua, don't cry. Tell Big Brother what happened. Seeing this scene, Fei Ren also frowned slightly. He immediately leaned forward and hugged the crying Xiao Hua into his embrace and softly said, Big Brother Fei Ren, a big baddie, snatched away the beautiful stone that you gave Xiao Hua. Ooh, that big baddie. Seeing that the person who came was Fei Ren, Xiao Hua cried even harder. She immediately burrowed into Fei Ren's embrace, and her eyes immediately became red. Even Chu Qian, who was at the side, could not stand it any longer. Her face was slightly angry. He actually bullied an insensible little girl. Where did this bastard come from? His face was gloomy. After comforting Xiao Hua, Fei Ren slowly stood up. His eyes gradually became cold. Princess, looks like the low-grade primordial stone that I gave Xiao Hua was recognized by someone. A small village actually has a knowledgeable practitioner. Interesting. I want to see where this thief came from. Currently, in the entire Ox Village, other than Xiao Hua's grandfather, the 8th level body refinement stage gray-clothed elder, who saw the rarity of the low-grade primordial stone, the other villagers did not know what it was. Like Xiao Hua, they only thought it was a beautiful stone. If they were not practitioners and also saw the rarity of the low-grade primordial stone, a normal adult would not snatch a toy from a 6 or 7-year-old little girl. How dare you? You dare to snatch something that I gave. No matter who you are dead meat. Thinking of this, Fei Ren's fists under his sleeves quietly clenched. During the time that he was recuperating in Ox Village, Xiao Hua and her grandfather took good care of him. He also saw the other party as his little sister. He would not tolerate anyone acting atrociously in Ox Village and bullying his little sister. Chapter 268. At the same time, at the entrance of Ox Village. Haha, I didn't expect a little kid to have a primordial stone. Moreover, it's a rare low-grade primordial stone. A burly, bald man laughed wildly with an excited expression. At this moment, he was holding a stone with a pure white luster in his hand. It was the low-grade primordial stone that Fei Run had given to Xiao Hua as a toy. When Xionghu, our village has already paid the tribute. Why do you still hurt people for no reason? Beside him, a few injured villagers were angry but did not dare to speak. They had planned to go out to hunt wild beasts to supplement their family's income. However, they had coincidentally bumped into this burly, bald man. Not only was he a martial artist, but he was also unreasonable. He had attacked and hurt people as soon as he arrived. At the same time, he had stolen the low-grade primordial stone from Xiaohua's hand. Although many villagers did not know the value of the low-grade primordial stone, they knew that it was a gift from Fei Run to the village chief's granddaughter, Xiaohua. Robbing a little girl, who was also the granddaughter of the village chief of Ox Village. Naturally, these villagers could not stand by and do nothing. They immediately rushed out to reason with a burly, bald man named Wen Xionghu. However, the burly man's strength was profound. These villagers were only ordinary people who did not have the strength to truss a chicken. Among them, there were only 1 or 2 half-baked martial artists at the 3rd or 4th level of the body refining realm. They were not a match for Wen Xionghu. Tribute? You bunch of Ox Village residents still want to deceive me. How could a little girl have a low-grade primordial stone? Do you know how valuable it is? How many treasures is your village head hiding behind his back? Do you really think you can fool me and the Axe Gang so easily? That's right. Don't tell me. Facing these villagers' questions, Wen Xionghu's expression turned sluggish. He then took back the low-grade primordial stone and laughed out loud. His eyes revealed a trace of cruelty. Wen Xionghu, don't go too far. Seeing this scene, one of the young men holding a hunting bow also had a furious expression as he cried out in a low voice. Not convinced? Then come up and try. Facing this young man's question, Wen Xionghu immediately snorted. At the same time, his feet fiercely stepped on the ground and took a horse stance. Primordial chi surged all over his body. A fierce aura spontaneously rose at the same time, causing the villagers to tremble and involuntarily retreat. Sensing the dangerous aura on the other party's body, the young man's face was filled with shock. He could only clench his teeth and did not dare to make sound. His cultivation level was only at the 3rd level of the body refinement realm, and the hunting bow in his hands was not a spirit artifact, but a normal weapon. His strength was extremely low, and he was not a match for Wen Xionghu. The other party was a martial artist from a small town 50 kilometers away. His essence force cultivation was not low and had already reached the 10th level of the body refinement realm. He was only a step away from the Middle Union realm. At the same time, Wen Xionghu was also the incense master of the 3rd-rate Axe Gang. Although the Axe Gang behind Wen Xionghu was only a small 3rd-rate faction, its gang leader was a Zhanghe realm expert. He had some fame in the surrounding 100 miles. Therefore, the other party was even more unrestrained. Taking advantage of this relationship, they had been tyrannical for many years, and no one dared to provoke them. As for the villagers of Ox Village, they were also deeply harmed. Every year, they had to hand over a portion of the village's income to the Axe Gang as tribute. The slightest negligence would lead to bloody revenge from the Axe Gang, and even a massacre. If not for the village chief of Ox Village, the gray-clothed old man who had taken in Fei Run and the others, protecting them with his own body and offering over half of the village's income as tribute, Ox Village would have been completely razed to the ground by the Axe Gang. As for these villagers, they naturally would not be able to escape. Incense Master 1, our Ox Village has already paid enough tribute this year. May I ask why you have come this time? At this time, the gray-clothed old man slowly walked over with his walking stick. This bastard from the Axe Gang, seeing that the surrounding villagers were covered in wounds and had many injuries, the gray-clothed old man's heart was filled with indignation. However, his essence force cultivation was only at the 8th level of the body refinement realm. In addition to his old age, he was not a match for Wen Xionghu. He could only endure and not act out. Old man, you finally came out. That little brat from before was your granddaughter, right? I didn't expect such a good thing like a low-grade origin stone to exist in such a barren place. Speak quickly. Where did you get this low-grade origin stone from? Are there any other low-grade origin stones here? If you speak honestly, I can let you and these people go. Otherwise, die. Seeing the gray-clothed old man appear, Wen Xionghu grinned and sneered. A trace of greed and cruelty flashed across his eyes. His essence force cultivation was at the 10th level of the body refinement realm. If he wanted to break through to the first level of the middle unity realm, a mere low-grade origin stone was not enough. However, if he absorbed a few more low-grade origin stones, his cultivation would have a high probability of breaking through again and stepping into the middle unity realm. The gap between a middle unity realm martial artist and a body refinement realm martial artist was extremely large. Once a middle unity realm martial artist became a middle unity realm martial artist, he could establish his own sect and establish his own faction. He even had the opportunity to become like the leader of the Axe Gang behind him, dominating the surrounding hundreds of miles and being invincible. This old man is most worried about the safety of these Ox Village villagers. I don't believe that you won't speak. Thinking of this, Wen Xionghu's heart burned with excitement. That low-grade origin stone does not belong to this old man or the villagers. It was a gift from a friend. As the dignified leader of the Axe Gang, you actually snatched something from a little girl. Isn't this a little degrading to your status and the reputation of the Axe Gang? Seeing that the other party had indeed come for the origin of the low-grade origin stone, the gray-clothed old man immediately tapped his walking stick on the ground and spoke indifferently. His tone was neither servile nor overbearing. Bullshit, old man. I think you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. As soon as the gray-clothed old man's voice fell, Wen Xionghu on the opposite side flew into a rage. It was as if he had been played. Immediately, his figure shot out explosively. He raised his hand and blasted towards the gray-clothed old man's head. Immediately, his essence force surged and a strong wind whistled. Village chief, be careful. Danger. Seeing Wen Xionghu brazenly attack, the surrounding villagers were shocked and cried out in alarm. Bang! At the critical moment, a golden stripe suddenly flew across the air. In the next moment, Wen Xionghu's body was swept by the golden stripe. Then, he was thrown back like a kite with a broken string. He slammed into a big tree not far behind him. He immediately spat out blood and looked miserable. What? In an instant, seeing Wen Xionghu's figure being repelled, the gray-clothed old man's expression changed slightly. At the same time, he turned his head to look behind him. His face was full of disbelief. Village chief, I'm sorry I'm late. A tall, thin figure appeared behind him. The person who came had a cold and handsome face. His aura was stable and orderly. At the moment, he was carrying a green dragon halberd on his back. It was Fei Run, who had been recuperating in the village for many days. Behind Fei Run, Xiao Hua, whose tears had not disappeared, and Chu Qian, whose pretty face was serious, followed. Chu Qian gently held Xiao Hua's hand with one hand, while Xiao Hua obediently held her hand. It seemed that they were already very familiar with each other. The scene was somewhat warm for a moment. Chapter 269. Little brother, your strength. Seeing Fei Ren slowly approaching from behind, the gray-clothed old man's eyes were filled with surprise. The golden stripe had been shot out from the old man's hand. With just one blow, it had forced Wen Xionghu, who was at the 10th level of the body refining realm, to retreat. Although the old man was the commander of the third-rate Axe Gang, he could not withstand a single blow from Fei Ren. It was enough to show that Fei Ren's strength was so powerful that he had already crushed Wen Xionghu. Woo! The big bad guy has been defeated. Big Brother Fei Ren is so powerful. At this moment, seeing Wen Xionghu, who had snatched her low-grade primordial stones, being sent flying by Fei Ren, spitting blood and falling to the ground, Xiaohua, who was next to Chu Qian, clapped her hands repeatedly. The tears at the corner of her eyes immediately disappeared. She cheered and seemed to be very happy. Village chief, you can take a rest at the back. I will deal with this person. The things that I have given out are not so easy to snatch. Glancing at the gray-clothed old man who was surprised and absent-minded, Fei Ren just nodded. Then he jumped and instantly arrived in front of Wen Xionghu, who had fallen to the ground with cold eyes. You're the one who snatched the things that I have given out. Looking at Fei Ren's ice-cold eyes, Wen Xionghu's heart palpitated and his expression became somewhat flustered. From the other party's eyes, he could actually feel an endless baleful aura and killing intent, as if he was an Azura death god. You, who are you? I'm the commander of the Axe Gang. How dare you attack me? Do you want to die? Although his heart was already retreating and fearful, in front of so many people, Wen Xionghu was still unwilling to give in because of his face and the reputation of the Axe Gang. He immediately spoke in a stern voice. Are you threatening me? As soon as he finished speaking, Fei Ren smiled coldly. At the same time, he lifted his foot and stomped on Wen Xionghu's right leg. Crack! Up! Along with the crisp sound of bones cracking, Wen Xionghu let out a miserable howl in the next moment. His entire face was twisted into a ball. His right leg had been crushed by Fei Ren on the spot, turning into a bloody mess. Spit out what you shouldn't have taken and apologize to the little girl. Otherwise, you can give up your left leg. After crippling Wen Xionghu's right leg, Fei Ren did not immediately kill him. Instead, he simply said, Bastard, apologize my ass. You want me to apologize to a little girl? Kill your grandpa, if you have the guts. At this time, Wen Xionghu forcefully endured the waves of intense pain coming from his crippled right leg. His face was also distorted and crazy. At the same time, he shouted furiously, as if he was very stubborn and unwilling to give in. As the dignified leader of the third-rate Axe Gang, he controlled over 100 underlings. Moreover, his yuan power cultivation had already reached the 10th level of the body refinement stage. He could be considered one of the top experts within a 100-mile radius. However, today, he was defeated in a small ox village. At the same time, he was defeated by an unknown young martial artist. How could this not make Wen Xionghu feel extraordinary shame and humiliation? It was even more unbearable than losing his life. Crack! Before Wen Xionghu's arrogant voice had even fallen, he saw Fei Ren stomping down again. Instantly, his left leg was crushed. His bones were broken and blood-splattered. With both his legs crippled, the intense pain instantly defeated Wen Xionghu. He let out a blood-curdling scream, and then his head tilted to the side. He fainted on the spot and completely lost consciousness. Only a terrifying pool of blood was left on the spot. The scene was somewhat bloody for a moment. Swoosh! With a flick of his finger, the low-grade yuan stone that Wen Xionghu had snatched away returned to his hand. In the next moment, Fei Ren raised his hand and shattered Wen Xionghu's dantian. At the same time, he turned around and left. He walked towards the group of Ox Village villagers and the gray-clothed elder. Decisive in killing. This was Fei Ren's style all along. Not to mention that the Axe Gang was merely a third-rate force. Even the people from the 9 ranks of the great families could not suppress him. Since he had stepped onto the martial path, countless enemies and opponents had died at his hands. Moreover, Wen Xionghu was only an ant at the 10th level of the body refinement stage in front of him. Although he did not kill Wen Xionghu on the spot, Fei Ren had already crippled both his legs and dantian. Even if Wen Xionghu was lucky enough to survive, he would only be an ordinary person with crippled legs and no cultivation. Naturally, he would not be able to bully the villagers of Ox Village. Little Blossom, don't look. Close your eyes. At this moment, looking at Wen Xionghu's miserable appearance, who had already fainted not far away, Chu Qian hurriedly extended her hand to cover Little Blossom's eyes. She seemed to feel that the scene was too bloody and not suitable for a little girl to watch. Little brother Fei Run, you crippled when Xionghu? Seeing Fei Ren's powerful move to cripple when Xionghu, the gray-clothed elder's expression was even more shocked. The other party could easily cripple when Xionghu, who was at the 10th level of the body refinement stage. His Yuan power cultivation must have reached the level of the Zhanghe stage, or even far beyond that. That's right, village chief. In the future, your Ox village can be peaceful. You also don't have to pay any tribute to the Axe Gang every year. I, Fei Run, have never liked to owe others anything. This time, consider it as me repaying your favor. Nodding his head, Fei Run also opened his mouth to speak. Little brother, this is not good. Although you have crippled Wen Xionghu, he is only one of the leaders of the Axe Gang. The Axe Gang is the only third-rate force in the surrounding 100 miles. Its gang leader is a Zhanghe stage expert. Ox Village has provoked them. In the future, there will be endless troubles. I'm afraid there will be a bloody disaster. The gray-clothed elder had just finished speaking when he shook his head and sighed. He seemed to be afraid of an imminent disaster. Indeed, Fei Ren had indeed crippled the tyrannical Wen Xionghu. However, the other party came from the third-rate force, the Axe Gang. Although Fei Ren and Chu Qian were strong, they could not stay in Ox Village forever. Once they left the village, Ox Village would suffer endless revenge from the Axe Gang. Village Chief, are you worried that the Axe Gang will retaliate against your Ox Village in the future? Similarly aware of the gray-clothed elder's thoughts, Fei Ren opened his mouth again at this time and spoke in a probing tone. That's right. The gray-clothed elder looked worried. However, in the next moment, Fei Ren chuckled and a murderous look appeared in his eyes. Village Chief, the Axe Gang will cease to exist soon. Swoosh. In a flash, Fei Ren appeared in front of Chu Qian and Xiao Hua. Once again, he took out the silver lower-grade primordial stone and handed it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua, be a good girl. Take this beautiful stone and go home with Grandpa. Big brother and big sister still have things to do. Yes. Xiao Hua is very obedient. Seeing that the beautiful stone had been recovered, Xiao Hua nodded obediently. A smile appeared on her face again. She immediately trotted back to the gray-clothed elder's side. Princess, you haven't used your fists and legs for many days. After coaxing Xiao Hua, Fei Ren looked at Chu Qian in front of him again and spoke. Fei Ren, do you want to destroy the Axe Gang? Chu Qian's pretty face was slightly stunned. In the next moment, a trace of surprise flashed across her beautiful eyes. She seemed to have sensed his thoughts. Princess seems to be a smart person. With a grin, Fei Ren did not deny it. Indeed, as the gray-clothed elder said, if they killed Wen Xionghu and other warriors, Ox Village would always be shrouded in the threat of revenge from the Axe Gang. In order to prevent the villagers of Ox Village from suffering from the Axe Gang's revenge, the only way was to completely wipe out the Axe Gang and eliminate them from the roots. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.